Marvel, it starts when it links with a great clock of the Super God Academy. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 676, Fierce Battle. At this moment, the only Decepticons who could catch up with Chelsea on the battlefield were those Decepticons with flying abilities. But Optimus Prime and the others had already realized the dangers of these Decepticons to the cube, so this time they could ignore any of them, but they all prioritized stopping those guys with flying abilities. Megatron, Starscream, and the other three who had helicopter forms were all entangled by the Autobots. Starscream, get out of the fight and chase. Megatron despised his deputy the most, but he also knew that among all the people under his command, Starscream's combat power was definitely the best. Moreover, Starscream also had a strong advantage in flying speed. If Starscream chased, he would definitely be able to catch up. Yes, Master, Starscream answered, and then he took off directly into the air, trying to chase in the direction of Skysha and Chelsea. Don't dream if you want to leave. Ironhide jumped suddenly, grabbed Starscream's feet with both hands, and pulled him hard to the ground. Red Spider still wanted to take off by force, but even when he flew into the air, Ironhide had no intention of letting go. Well, since you refuse to let go, I will let you die. As Red Spider spoke, he lowered his head and aimed the muzzle of his hand at Ironhide again. Want to fire? Then let's see whose shell is more powerful. Seeing that Red Spider wanted to kill him, Ironhide didn't care about anything else and directly transformed two cannon barrels on the back of his hands. At this moment, Ironhide was originally holding Red Spider's feet. The two hand cannons appeared and were aimed directly at Red Spider's feet without aiming. Bang, bang, bang. 3 cannon shots sounded at the same time, and Ironhide's hands fired 2 shells at the same time, and Red Spider's hand also fired 1. Ironhide's 2 shells landed directly on Red Spider's abdomen and inner thighs, and Red Spider's shells landed directly on Ironhide's chest. In an instant, both of them were seriously injured and fell directly from the sky. Having already been severely injured, and falling from such a high altitude, the bodies of these two people fell apart in an instant. Ironhide and Starscream, both of them died together. And there were many casualties on the battlefield at this moment. Sideswipe, Ironhide, Chelsea's 2 sisters. The number of Autobots killed has reached 6, and even Bumblebee has been seriously injured at this moment. Although he has regained consciousness, he can no longer fight. The casualties on the Decepticon side are even more severe, but their number is much larger than that of the Autobots, so even with heavy losses, they still have an absolute upper hand at this moment. Optimus Prime, are you really going to let countless of our compatriots die for such a backward planet and for these insignificant little bugs? Megatron questioned. From his point of view, he could not understand what Optimus Prime did. They are all Cybertronians, and they are obviously a race. But now, Optimus Prime is helping humans deal with their compatriots. It was the Fallen who violated the agreement of the Elders first, and you, my brother, you have already become addicted to killing. Optimus Prime sighed helplessly. He has lost too many compatriots today, but he has no choice in this matter. The cube must be defended, and the Earth must not be destroyed because of their own problems on Cybertron. These two former brothers, standing on their own standpoints, cannot understand each other. In that case, then you go to hell. Megatron began to explode, and his powerful firepower was fully demonstrated at this moment. In just a moment, the two people who were originally evenly matched became Megatron, who had the upper hand, and Optimus Prime could only be suppressed by Megatron and passively beaten. The situation on the battlefield is very bad. If we can't wait for support, I'm afraid that all the people of the Autobots and the Nest troops will be killed or injured. Chelsea saw everything that happened on the battlefield behind through the rearview mirror. She saw Ironhide, who died with Starscream in midair, and also saw her 2 sisters killed by the Decepticons. This decisive battle has caused too many Autobots to die in battle. Lennox, have you received any news of reinforcements on the shortwave channel? Chyansha hurriedly contacted Lennox. He had to know if any reinforcements were on their way. Just received news that the National Defense Corps is now 20 kilometers away from us and is rushing towards us at the fastest speed, Lennox replied. Where are the fighters? If there is support, shouldn't the fighters arrive first? Chyansha asked. He needed to know the whole situation. The National Defense Corps reported that when they received a distress signal and began to assemble, the Air Force Base was attacked by a huge mechanical monster. All the F-22 and Shadow helicopters were destroyed, Lennox replied. Huge mechanical monster. Xianxia was subconsciously confused when he heard what Lennox said. But soon he thought of a person, a Decepticon with a huge mechanical monster by his side. Not good, evacuate our people immediately, run as far as you can, Xianxia shouted loudly. However, almost at the moment when his voice fell, a huge explosion came from the desert not far away, and a huge steel tentacle suddenly drilled out from under the ground. Then, a huge steel monster that looked like an earthworm was rushing towards them. It's the Cybertron driller, Shockwave is coming. Jazz, who had just rushed over from the base, saw the huge monster and immediately warned them. Everyone, start hiding now, don't go head-on with the Cybertron driller. Optimus Prime forcefully pushed Megatron away, and then gave orders to everyone on the battlefield. Lennox and the others were originally confused, but when he heard that Skysia, Jazz and Optimus Prime had the same reaction, urging everyone to flee quickly, he realized how terrifying this suddenly appearing monster was. At that moment, he led his team to run towards the hill next to him without hesitation, and the other Autobots and Nest Force soldiers also quickly dispersed. However, even though they were trying their best to hide, it was still a little late. The Cybertron driller had already entered the battlefield, and in an instant, an Autobot was directly swallowed by it, and his entire body was torn into pieces by its rotating giant mouth. Many soldiers were also crushed to pieces by this monster's rampage. Chapter 677, The Decepticons' Elite Forces Depart. In this battle, the Decepticons can be said to have sent out their best troops. Megatron led the team himself, and famous Decepticons such as Starscream and Shockwave also appeared. If Soundwave, who is in space, was added, it would be an all-star lineup of Decepticons. As for the Autobots, there were only a dozen Autobots gathered now, and 7 or 8 of them died in this battle. The Autobots now have been seriously injured. Most of the soldiers in the nest base were also killed or injured. If this continues, I'm afraid the whole army will be wiped out. Xianxia was anxious when he saw this situation. He couldn't help but want to use his true strength to kill all these Decepticons. Just when Xianxia hesitated, a roar came from the sky. Looking up, more than a dozen fighters were whistling in formation. As soon as these fighters arrived, a large number of missiles flew out, and the priority target of these missiles was the Cybertron driller that was wreaking havoc on the ground. Now, the biggest threat to the Autobots and human soldiers on the battlefield is the Burrower. Although the Burrower is powerful and the damage it causes is amazing, it is facing missiles at the moment. The missiles fired by these fighters flying quickly from the sky are constantly falling on the ground. Even though the Burrower is huge, it can hardly withstand a few missiles in such a situation. Therefore, it quickly drilled into the ground and began to quickly flee from the battlefield. Seeing this, the other Decepticons did not dare to confront the missiles head-on. They could only avoid the missiles as much as possible and then quickly evacuate in all directions. Xianxia looked at this situation and knew that their turning point had finally come, so he relaxed. However, just when he relaxed, a figure suddenly fell from the sky. Megatron, he actually appeared above Xianxia when Xianxia didn't notice it at all, and landed where Chelsea was. Not good, Xianxia exclaimed, and then a short sword-emitting red light appeared in his hand. Megatron took advantage of the gap between Shockwave and Driller, and launched the pursuit when all the Autobots could only avoid it. At this moment, it was impossible for Xianxia to escape from Megatron's hands. In this case, the only way to stop Megatron from taking the Rubik's Cube away was to destroy it. Relying on the current technology of the Earth and the Transformers world, it is definitely impossible to destroy the Rubik's Cube, but it is easy to use the Super God technology. Therefore, the dagger that Xianxia took out at this moment was not an ordinary dagger, but a flame-level weapon, which contained extremely strong energy. As Xianxia stabbed down fiercely with a sword, the Rubik's Cube exploded in an instant, and the entire Rubik's Cube was melted in an instant by the extremely high heat. However, the time was too short, and Xianxia did not use more abilities. The final result of the Rubik's Cube was only destroyed for the most part, but it could not completely disappear. No, Megatron roared, but he could do nothing about it. He reacted quickly, grabbed the largest piece of debris, and then transformed into a Cybertron flying tank and left the battlefield. The cube had been destroyed, and the human reinforcements had arrived. It was meaningless for him to stay. So Megatron had to leave, taking the largest piece of debris with him. Perhaps, with this fragment, he could still get useful information and a small amount of energy. With Megatron's departure, the other Decepticons had already fled, and this massive battle finally came to an end. After this battle, the entire nest base was completely destroyed, and the soldiers in the nest base were killed or injured by 2/3, and the Autobots also lost half. Bumblebee was finally rescued, but Autobots such as Ironhide and Sidewinder had left forever, and Sidewinder couldn't even find his body. Of course, they didn't know that it was Skysha who took Sidewinder's body away. They just thought that it was in the late stage of the battle, and the sudden appearance of Shockwave and the appearance of the Cybertron driller completely destroyed Sidewinder's body or dragged it underground. Moreover, there were so many people whose bodies could not be found on the battlefield. In that environment, if you fell, you would not have a chance to leave a complete body. Big Clock, find a chance later to recover all the Autobots who died and see if you can revive them. Scientia was communicating with Big Clock. If you want to revive all the Autobots, then what about the soldiers in the nest base who fought with you? What should they do? Big Clock asked a very critical question, a question about life. What do you mean? Scientia had already guessed what Big Clock wanted to say, but he still couldn't help but want to ask what Big Clock really thought. It's understandable that you want to save Sidewinder, because he sacrificed his life to protect you, and he deserves this reward, but if you save all the other Autobots, then it would be very unfair to those humans if you don't save them, but if you want to save those humans as well, you must use the space-time ability. The effect of space-time ability in different worlds is different. Maybe we will cause more problems in this world because of this. In addition, after the Autobots are resurrected, they are just one person. You can even take them directly to other worlds to start a new life, but those human soldiers can't. They live in this world and build a family bond with blood. In this case, they must eventually return to their original society. How will you deal with their relationship with other people at that time? The Big Clock analyzed all the interests with Scientia and raised all the problems to Scientia. Scientia is not stupid. He has actually thought of this kind of thing a long time ago. However, facing so many brothers and comrades who died in the battle, he always felt a little bit of pity in his heart for not saving them all when he obviously had the ability. I'm not asking you to become indifferent, but sometimes, rationality is also necessary, the Big Clock said, and the tone of its speech at this moment was just like Li Qingyun. Although Li Qingyun didn't say anything when he handed the Big Clock to Scientia, the artificial intelligence system of the Big Clock had been rewritten by Li Qingyun a long time ago. Although it was the same model as when Li Qingyun first used it, it added some of Li Qingyun's way of thinking into it. Chapter 678, Gathering More Troops. I understand what you mean, Scientia nodded. He actually understood it from the beginning, and knew it a long time ago. But humans are not machines after all, and absolute rationality is impossible. Just like what Moss said in The Wandering Earth, it is a luxury to want humans to remain rational forever. Even humans like Scientia, who have evolved from ordinary humans to gods, still have characteristics such as sensibility and wormholes, which can never be changed. Keep their bodies for now. I will seriously consider whether to revive them in the future. After Scientia finished speaking, he directly cut off the conversation with the Great Clock. Regarding the Autobots, he needs to consider carefully, not just out of rationality, but a dual consideration based on rationality and sensibility. However, Sidewinder will definitely be resurrected, because Scientia owes Sidewinder. The Great Clock also knew this a long time ago, so it did not remind Scientia, and Sidewinder should not be resurrected in this way. After closing the communication with the Great Clock, Scientia came to Optimus Prime. Are you blaming yourself? Scientia asked. Looking at Optimus Prime, who was silent at the moment, he felt that this guy must be blaming himself for not destroying the Rubik's Cube earlier. There is no point in blaming yourself, Optimus Prime replied. I'm glad that you still keep your sanity, Scientia said this with a heartfelt sigh. Just now, even he almost lost his mind. If Optimus Prime is also like this, then their team is really too immature. How was the Rubik's Cube destroyed at that time? Optimus Prime did not see the process of the Rubik's Cube being destroyed at that time, so now he also wants to know how the Rubik's Cube was destroyed at that time. The plasma blasting device and Megatron's shell work together to completely shatter and melt most of it, Scientia said, and the plasma blasting device is exactly a technology that the nest base is researching, a technology that can destroy the energy equation in the Rubik's Cube. It's a pity that this technology has not been fully perfected, that is, it has not yet achieved real results. Scientia added a cannon attack by Megatron to the destruction of the Rubik's Cube, which made the process more realistic. Although Optimus Prime felt that this moment came too late, he would not doubt whether Scientia had any doubts about him. As for Chels and Megatron, the two people who witnessed it at the time, Scientia naturally had already made arrangements. He slightly rewrote the memories of these two people through the big clock and directly deleted this part of the content. Anyway, they are just two Transformers. The self-protection design of their brains is like a decoration in front of the big clock. Although the Rubik's Cube has been destroyed, the Matrix and the device that can destroy the sun are still there. I believe the Decepticons still have a way to directly destroy the entire Earth. Optimus Prime looked at Scientia. He knew that now was not the time to relax. That's right. Just look at the scale of the Decepticons' deployment today. They have already mobilized almost all the Decepticons they can to Earth. This war is the final battle between us and the entire Decepticon camp. Scientia knew that his appearance had fluctuated the timeline. The original Decepticons had come back again and again, but it would definitely not happen again here. Look at Shockwave, who appeared in today's war. This Decepticon was originally supposed to appear in the third Transformers movie, but now he appeared in advance. If Scientia unlocked the restrictions on himself and directly scanned the entire Earth and then observed the moon, he would find that the Decepticons had mobilized all the Decepticons that would appear in the third movie this time. You know, in the entire Transformers series of movies, the third movie has the most Transformers. In the plot of the third movie, not only the number of Autobots reached the highest number in the movie, but also the number of Decepticons. There are at least hundreds of Decepticons occupying the entire city of Los Angeles, and hundreds of them have been dispersed to set up transmission devices all over the world. In addition, they are also equipped with a large number of Cybertron weapons and equipment, powerful spacecraft and maintenance equipment. Commander, we have received news from the staff meeting. They have notified you to go to the Pentagon for a meeting immediately. Lennox came to Scientia and handed a document to Scientia. Morse code. They have restarted all Morse communication channels around the world and are contacting and communicating through the global radar system. Scientia looked at the information written on the paper and knew what the global situation was at the moment. All communication satellites have been shot down, and their communication system is completely paralyzed. Although the shortwave platform can still be used, the communication distance it generates is only 20 to 30 miles at most, which is not enough to meet the needs of mankind today. There is only Morse code, which is a means of transmitting messages through radar transmission and receiving special radio wave channels. Even without relying on artificial satellites, global communication is still possible. However, this is very inefficient, and it is difficult to achieve real-time communication. It can only transmit some messages like now. Lennox, leave some people to guard the nest base, and the rest of you should get ready and go to the Pentagon with me. Scientia knew why those guys were looking for them, and he also knew what they would do in the next period of time. Therefore, Scientia had to take the most elite soldiers around him with him. Yes, I will arrange it immediately, Lennox agreed, and then turned around to make follow-up arrangements for the entire nest base. After 3 hours, Lennox came back with a team of more than 50 people. He was accompanied by old acquaintances such as Simon, Tom, and Epps. In addition, all the Autobots came, including Bumblebee, who had just been repaired by the ambulance. They drove directly and left the nest base. They will go to the Pentagon next, first to meet with the senior military officials, and then they will go to Africa. The Matrix and the device that can destroy the sun are there, and the final battle site must be there. However, if they want to win this time, I am afraid they will have to mobilize more human troops to participate in order to have a little chance. Chapter 679, the next breakout point. It only took half a day for Scientia and his team to reach the Pentagon. At this moment, many people gathered in the conference room here, not only the military leaders of this country, but also representatives from many other countries. Because this meeting involves not only one country, but also a major event that affects all countries in the world. What is the situation of the nest base? Admiral Mitchell asked directly when Scientia just arrived. The nest base has been basically destroyed, with casualties reaching 2/3, and only half of the Autobots are left now. Scientia told the real situation, and the situation also made everyone present look solemn, especially the original military leaders of the Pentagon. They all knew the strength of the nest base. Although there were only more than 1,000 soldiers in that military base, it was equipped with the most advanced and powerful weapons and equipment in the world today. In addition, there were a large number of Autobots stationed there, and its real combat power was even stronger than those large-scale military bases with tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of people. However, after such an alien invasion war, the place was completely destroyed, 2/3 of the soldiers were killed or wounded, and more than half of the Autobots were lost. It is conceivable how tragic this battle was. If the supporting fighters had not arrived in time, and their attack targets had been destroyed, I am afraid that no one in the nest base would have survived this battle. Qianxia did not stop talking because of the fear of these people in the previous words, but expressed the problem more seriously. Moreover, this was not his deliberate exaggeration, but it would really happen. Since their target has been lost, will they not attack our Earth again? The presidential envoy with gold-rimmed glasses, the guy who tried to enter the nest base many times but failed, now sat in this conference room as the president's representative. No, the target I said was lost, it was only their temporary target, and the real target of the Decepticons has always been the entire Earth. Qianxia ignored the guy. Anyway, it was already this time, and he was not afraid that he would leak any secrets. What do you mean? Aren't the Decepticons' goal just to seek revenge on the Autobots? Aren't they just here to steal their lost energy source? The president's special envoy still believes in his theory until now, thinking that all the Decepticons' actions against the Earth are caused by the Autobots and their broken cube. Can this guy be thrown out? Qianxia really didn't want to pay attention to him, but this guy was too annoying. No, you can't. He wanted to say that Qianxia didn't have the power, but he shut up halfway through his words. When he was in the nest base, he was driven away when he took the official document with the president's personal seal. Now Qianxia and his men came with murderous intent. He didn't dare to provoke a person like him who only relied on his mouth and conspiracy theories to get to the top. Can you tell us where the Decepticons will attack next? At this moment, in the meeting, a man in a Shuangshan suit suddenly asked. Qianxia looked at the man who asked, and subconsciously smiled. Sure enough, only people of this nation can have such a clear mind and know what they really need to pay attention to at this time. In the information we investigated through the magic cube, there is such a sentence: when the dawn shines on the tip of the dagger, the three kings will guide us during this period. I have been asking Agent Simon to investigate around the world based on this sentence. Judging from the latest news, the tip of the dagger should be near the Red Sea in Egypt, Qianxia explained. He did not give a direct answer, but analyzed it based on the clues currently available. The tip of the dagger? We do have such a saying in our local area. The representative of Egypt directly agreed with Qianxia's statement, because there is indeed such a place in their country. In other words, the next outbreak point of the war is likely to be in Egypt. Everyone present looked at the representative in the Shuangshan suit at this time, because what he said was of great significance. Yes, we currently judge that there is a high possibility that it is the next outbreak point of the war, and it is also the key point that will determine whether the sun can be defended. Qianxia answered affirmatively. In that case, we should immediately send heavy troops there. We must not let the failure of the nest base happen again in Egypt, said the European representative. What do you mean by that? Are you saying that we are incompetent and failed to defend the nest base? Lennox got anxious when he heard this. More than 1,000 people in their nest base fought desperately. In the end, more than 2/3 of their comrades were sacrificed. No, I'm not talking about you, but about them. The European representative turned his eyes to the presidential envoy and Admiral Mitchell. When the two saw the European representative's gaze, their faces changed immediately. Such an important place, such a critical base, there is not even a single reserve support force in the surrounding area. The nearest support base actually had all the fighters and helicopters destroyed before starting support. This is a huge loophole in security protection. It is because of the lack of attention to the nest base that such a huge loss was caused. The words of the European representative made Admiral Mitchell and the presidential envoy even more ashamed. In particular, the other representatives nodded one after another, clearly supporting the European representative's point of view. In fact, they did have some problems. Originally, there should have been at least 3 bases for the protection of the nest base and the surrounding reserve support bases. But later, due to various considerations, they withdrew them directly, especially after the new president took office. The presidential envoy made suggestions again and again, saying something like this was a war between aliens and that humans should not pay for it. Military spending was cut and the troops were redeployed, so that there was only one military base left outside the nest base. Communications were cut, and the Decepticons determined that this was the only military base that could provide support to the nest base in a short period of time, so they would naturally attack there. It was also because of this that the only base that received the message through the shortwave channel in a short period of time was unable to provide effective military support to the nest base, which ultimately led to the end of the nest base. Chapter 680 Xianxia's True Intention. It's meaningless to talk about the past. Let's discuss how to deal with the second round of Decepticons' actions, the representative of the Eastern Power suggested. Yes, right now, we should first think of a way to deal with the war later. Admiral Mitchell finally found an opportunity to get rid of the embarrassment and immediately took over the conversation. We have an aircraft carrier battle group near the Gulf of Aden. They can quickly make adjustments and get close to the place called the Dagger Point to be ready for support at any time. In addition, there are all the military bases nearby. All teams can set off at the first time to cooperate in searching for the machine. The military layout of the United States and the world can be said to be perfect. There are military bases or aircraft carrier formations stationed at any keynote on the Earth. Therefore, if they can be the first to deploy troops to the Red Sea at this time, it must be them. Relying solely on the number of people may not be effective in such a battle. Xianxia spoke. He insisted on forming a global military alliance this time, not just to get a country to send troops. What suggestions do you have, Major General Li? The representative of the Eastern Power asked. Although it has been confirmed that the outbreak point will be in Egypt, it is not certain where exactly it will be. Moreover, we must first search for the Matrix, and this search process cannot be followed by a large number of aircraft and tanks. Because of this, what we need this time is a large number of elite troops, not a large-scale military operation, Xianxia explained. Do you mean to dispatch a group of elite soldiers to Egypt? The representative of the big country asked. Yes, it should be composed of the most well-equipped special forces, preferably about 500 people to form a team, and multiple teams should search in the same area at the same time. All these teams must carry short-wave communication equipment, or directly carry primitive short-range communication tools. Make sure that the distance between each team cannot exceed 30 kilometers, so that after one team finds the target, other teams can quickly go to support. Xianxia directly said his real idea. 500 people in a team, scattered throughout the area near the Red Sea. The distance between each team cannot exceed 30 kilometers, which may require dozens of teams to act together. How can our country gather so many special forces teams at once? Admiral Mitchell is very clear about the combat power of his troops now. It is impossible to find dozens of special forces like the nest-based troops. Our Wolf Commando, Dragon Team, and Snow Leopard Team can set off to Egypt immediately. The representative of the Eastern Power stood up directly. We also have 2 special forces in Russia, which can set off to the Red Sea immediately, and my Europa. At a time, all the representatives stood up and said the troops they could send. Although this is definitely not the only special forces in their country, there is no doubt that with so many countries and regions participating at the same time, the troops provided can definitely reach the scale required by Xianxia. This matter is not yet at the point where you are needed. I have proposed to form a global military alliance a long time ago. Isn't this the best opportunity to practice it? Xianxia interrupted Admiral Mitchell. He proposed this plan. The main purpose is to connect the armies of the entire Earth. Even if this connection is only a very basic, simple contact, there can be a second and third time after the first one. If there is no beginning, how can the follow-up achieve this effect step by step? But this matter is of great importance. How can these people here make decisions on their own? Said the presidential envoy. I can represent our country with full authority. We can also represent our respective countries and regions with full authority. These representatives had received orders and instructions before coming. They came here to negotiate how to protect the Earth. In addition, this is an opportunity to really contact the Transformers. Maybe in the future, the Transformers will no longer be exclusive to the United States, but a common asset of the world. This is of great benefit to people in any country or region. In this case, they, as representatives, will naturally not have any hesitation. Admiral Mitchell and the presidential envoy still wanted to refuse, but in this case, they have been set up. If they don't agree, they will really not be able to protect the Autobots and the mysterious boy Xianxia. Okay, I will report this to the Secretary of Defense and Mr. President immediately, and then I will send a special forces unit to Egypt as soon as possible. Admiral Mitchell had to force his position at this time. You must make subsequent arrangements as soon as possible. I will take the Autobots and go directly to Egypt to start the early search. Scientia stepped forward and said. Are you leaving now? Admiral Mitchell looked at Scientia in confusion. The situation is urgent. If we are a step slower, we may miss the opportunity, Scientia replied. But how many people do you have now? Can you still ensure your own safety? Admiral Mitchell asked. We only have a few dozen people coming this time, but the Autobots will act with us, so our overall combat power will not be weaker than one of your special forces, but just as you said, if a war really breaks out with the Decepticons, this number of people will definitely not be enough, so, you must send troops to support as soon as possible. Only in this way can you really be sure of nothing will go wrong. After Scientia finished speaking, he stepped aside, saluted with Lennox and others, and then left a meeting room. As for how the people in the conference room would discuss and how to dispatch the troops, Scientia no longer cared. After leaving the conference room, Scientia, Lennox and others went directly to the airport with the Autobots, boarded a large transport plane and immediately set off for Egypt. They had to find the dagger tip and the Matrix before the Decepticons. However, it would be better to delay until all the special forces from all countries in the world arrived before finding them. The former was to prevent the Decepticons' conspiracy from succeeding, and the latter was to create an opportunity for all countries to form a military alliance. Scientia wanted to promote the military unity of the Earth in this world, which was one of his goals. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 681, The Gathering of Special Forces from All Over the World. Scientia and his men soon arrived at the Egyptian desert. They landed in an area and then began to station there, while spreading out to the surrounding areas. At the same time, the second batch of support troops and the nest base also arrived soon. It was a team of 200 people that EPS had reselected after sorting out the situation in the nest base. However, after all these people arrived, they did not start to act immediately, but took a rest. You have not taken any action. Have you known where the Matrix is? Optimus Prime came to Scientia's side. This time, he felt that Scientia had many secrets, or he felt that Scientia's goal was not just to fight against the Decepticons. Why do you ask this suddenly? Scientia turned around and looked at Optimus Prime. I always feel that you seem to be deliberately planning something, and it doesn't seem like you are simply preventing the Decepticons from snatching the Matrix. Optimus Prime went straight to the point. Well, you're right. I'm not just trying to deal with the Decepticons. Scientia also admitted that he had used the Autobots in this matter, so he planned not to hide it from Optimus Prime. What was your first impression of the Earth? Scientia asked. It's a beautiful planet full of life. Optimus Prime gave his answer without hesitation. What about the humans on Earth? Scientia asked again. You want to ask? Optimus Prime looked at Scientia. You should have noticed that there are conflicts between countries on this planet now, and conflicts between humans. Such conflicts and contradictions have caused this world to be in disaster all the time. A chaotic world will only bring endless pain. Scientia pondered for a moment, and then said again. I have seen how beautiful a completely unified world is, so I also want to make this place the same as there. Yes, Scientia saw what the Earth of the Marvel world would look like after it was unified. He grew up living in the ideal cradle of super god civilization since he was a child. Now that he has come to this world, he has entered here as a civilian and has learned about this world very seriously. Then he discovered how huge the difference is between this world and the super god civilization. It was under this circumstance that he began his own plan, wanting to use the condition of the Decepticons to create a world similar to the super god civilization. Unfortunately, he miscalculated from the beginning. The peaceful unification of the super god civilization is based on the strength of the super god civilization itself, and on the powerful military force possessed by Li Qingyun and the group of people around him. And here, what Scientia has done now seems to be very successful. Relying on the existence of external pressure from the Decepticons, he can slowly promote the World Military Alliance, and maybe he can really promote the global military power in the future. But once the Decepticons are eliminated, once Scientia leaves this world, everything will definitely return to the original state. However, the big clock has calculated all this, and it will not tell Scientia the result. because experiencing the whole process is harmless to him. Li Qingyun has already set up a similar solution for the big clock. Let's get back to the topic. At this moment, Xianxia was still following his idea, and Optimus Prime finally understood Xianxia's true purpose. However, Optimus Prime also understood that this idea might be very difficult to achieve. The interests, thoughts, and historical grievances between people will lead to endless struggles between each other. It is impossible to achieve unity and solidarity. At least on their planet Cybertron, this has not been achieved. I also know that this may be difficult to achieve, but as a human being, I still want to try it, Xianxia said. Well, this kind of thing, if it can be achieved, is indeed very useful. Optimus Prime nodded, and he did not directly express any opinions on Xianxia's statement. After all, just having this thought is already precious. Commander, the Wolf Special Forces have arrived, and their leader is here in person, Epps came to Xianxia to report. Oh, the captain of the Wolf Special Forces? Take me over to see. Xianxia was also delighted to hear that the first to arrive was the Wolf Special Forces. So, he took Optimus Prime directly to meet them. When the two sides met, the moment the special forces of these Oriental powers saw Optimus Prime, they all showed expressions of shock, curiosity and surprise. As the most elite special forces of a great country, they naturally knew that there was a group of Transformers. But until today, this was the first time they saw these Transformers in person. Xianxia talked with the other party for a long time, and finally arranged the areas they were responsible for. In order to maintain contact and promote feelings between each other, Xianxia also directly sent Jazz over to assist the Werewolf Special Forces in searching the area they were responsible for. Xianxia also met with other special forces that came later, and special forces from several important regions and countries, and provided them with an Autobot as a helper. The real intention of doing this is naturally not to let them really help, but to give these countries an opportunity to understand the Autobots. In the end, the three Autobots who stayed on Xianxia's side were Optimus Prime, Bumblebee and Chelsea. The reason for leaving these three is naturally that they have the best relationship with Xianxia and can provide the most help to Xianxia. After all, Xianxia is the most core person on the entire battlefield. He is now the Supreme Commander responsible for the command and dispatch of all special forces. Moreover, Xianxia already knows where the Matrix is. At the same time, in space, Soundwave has observed the gathering of these armies on Earth. Master, the approximate location of the Matrix has been determined. Soundwave immediately reported the situation to Megatron. Under the current special state of the Earth, the armies of the world are gathering in the same area, so the Matrix is likely to be there. Xianxia naturally knows that this will expose their position, but he doesn't care about it. As long as the final goal is achieved, everything else doesn't matter. Sooner or later, both sides will go to war anyway. At this time, Xianxia, seeing that the troops around the world have almost gathered, has begun to discuss how to deal with the Decepticons. At this moment, Xianxia, Optimus Prime, Bumblebee, Chelsea, Lennox, Simon, Tom, Epps and others are all sitting together. Chapter 682, How to Deal with Shockwaves. The biggest problem in the final battle with the Decepticons should be Shockwave and the Cybertron driller he controls, Lennox said. The last time he was at the scene, he was almost killed by this guy. Yes, Shockwave's personal strength may not be as strong as Megatron, but his role on the battlefield is the most terrifying. If we can't find a way to deal with him, he will definitely pose a huge threat to us when the final battle comes. Optimus Prime agreed with Lennox's statement. When they were on Cybertron, the Autobots had suffered many losses at the hands of Shockwave, and many Autobots died at Shockwave's hands. Shockwave's driller is basically invincible on the ground. If we can't find a way to destroy it once and for all, then it will be cautious and we will no longer be able to pose a threat to it, Xianxia reminded. To destroy such a big guy in one go, I'm afraid we have to use high-yield missiles, but that kind of weapon is only available on fighter jets. Of course, we can also use long-range missiles directly, but without satellite guidance, long-range missiles cannot be used at all, Epps said. It should be possible to use railguns, Chelsea reminded. But Ironhide has. Lennox was in a low mood. This was their brother who had been through life and death together, but now he was separated from his father. Although Ironhide died, the railgun has been recovered and is now in Bumblebee's hands. Xianxia also knew that it was a pity that Ironhide died in battle. But in the last battle, they sacrificed more than just Ironhide. In order to protect the magic cube and to protect this world, they have paid a lot and sacrificed a lot. But even so, they still have to continue to persevere, because the real decisive battle has not yet begun, because they have not defeated all the enemies. In fact, the most powerful among us is Optimus Prime. Even the power of the railgun may not be as powerful as Optimus Prime's energy sword, Chelsea said. No, I have to fight the dredge monster with the energy sword, so I have to fight it in close combat. But once I get close, I can't resist the huge body of the dredge monster at all. Optimus Prime shook his head. This battle needs to be adapted to local conditions. To deal with this Cybertron dredge monster, not only does it need great power, but also a good output environment and opportunity. What if you are equipped with flight equipment? Xianxia looked at Optimus Prime. He remembered what his father had told him, that Optimus Prime's power would increase greatly after he merged with Skyfire's equipment. In other words, the current Optimus Prime is actually just a low-profile version. Because he has not merged with Skyfire, his combat power has not reached its peak. Therefore, if Optimus Prime can be equipped with those weapons and equipment, maybe Optimus Prime can burst out with stronger combat power on the battlefield. Flying equipment, Optimus Prime looked confused. Simon, I remember that when you were investigating the Matrix intelligence before, you heard about a Decepticon disguised as a blackbird. Has that Decepticon died of old age? Xianxia turned his head to look at Agent Simon next to him. We have checked carefully. The Decepticon has completely lost power and is probably dead, Agent Simon replied. If that is the case, then the parts and equipment on him may still be usable. We can transfer the equipment on him to strengthen and upgrade Optimus Prime. Xianxia said, turning his head to look at Optimus Prime. A Transformer predecessor who has died, do we really need to disturb his body? Optimus Prime hesitated. He was not willing to do such a thing. Now that things have come to this, it is not the time for us to hesitate. We must expand our strength as much as possible. Xianxia's answer was very direct. What he wanted now was simple, that is, to increase their strength and give them more capital to fight against the Decepticons. Lennox, send a telegram to contact the nearby Air Force base and ask them to send a large transport plane. Optimus Prime and the ambulance must go back. Xianxia turned his head to look at Lennox. Yes, I will contact the headquarters immediately. Lennox was a soldier. He didn't know what disturbing the predecessors of the Transformers was. He only knew that this was a move that was beneficial to them. 2 hours later, the large transport plane had already arrived at a nearby Air Force base, and Optimus Prime and Ratchet had also arrived here. After that, the two of them would return directly to the country to find the Decepticon named Skyfire, and then disassemble his body and reassemble it onto Optimus Prime. The reason why Ratchet went back with him was because Ratchet himself was an Autobot doctor, and he was very familiar with this kind of transformation and strengthening technology. In the movie, when Optimus Prime transferred Skyfire's equipment, it was Ratchet who guided him on the spot. Optimus Prime's sudden departure confused the Decepticons who had already locked onto the Skyfire team and thought that the Matrix was there. Why did Optimus Prime leave at this time? Where did he go? Megatron asked. Now all the artificial satellites on the Earth have been destroyed, except for one that was directly controlled by Soundwave. Soundwave is monitoring the situation on the Earth through this artificial satellite. However, this kind of monitoring can only monitor locally, and it cannot cover the whole world. In other words, after Optimus Prime left the camp of the Special Forces, Soundwave could not track where he went. No matter where they went, as long as the large force is still near the Red Sea, it means that their target must still be here, Soundwave replied, which was Soundwave's opinion on this incident. Master, now the human army is gathering here in large numbers. If we really go to war with them, I'm afraid we will be in trouble. Shockwave came to Megatron's side. Now that Starscream is dead, there are only Shockwave and Soundwave left beside Megatron. Soundwave still needs to stay in the sky, so Shockwave can only follow Megatron. Where are the ambushes on the side of the Skybreaker? Megatron asked. Since he had already mobilized Shockwave this time, the manpower originally reserved for the Skybreaker to execute the plan would naturally be mobilized. Everyone is ready, but, just what? Are you sure you want to mobilize this force? They are the last trump card we have reserved for conquering the Earth. Shockwave said the problem he cared about most. A problem related to the entire Decepticons' huge plan. Chapter 683, Battle for the Matrix. It's already come to this point, all the plans are useless, Megatron said. He had originally pinned his hopes on that plan. But things have developed to this point. The two sides have developed into a full-scale war, and everyone on the Earth is targeting the Decepticons. In this case, it is basically impossible to realize this plan by using the humans' distrust of the Autobots to force the Earthlings to lose the Autobots as an ally, and then use the Skybreakers to start the planetary transmission. So, at this time, it is better to pretend that nothing happens, and directly settle all the grievances through this battle for the Matrix. Understood, Lord Megatron, although Shockwave is very powerful and has his own opinions and ideas. But Megatron is the leader of all Decepticons, and he is the one who can decide the direction of the entire Decepticon. So, at this time, he unconditionally chose to believe in Megatron. The Decepticon troops began to gather in large numbers, and they wandered in space, ready to enter the atmosphere and enter the Earth at any time. At the same time, all the special forces on Earth were continuing to search for the whereabouts of the Matrix, and the Dragon team of the Eastern Power had found a special pyramid, a pyramid that was detected to contain special metals. Qianxia knew that the pyramid was the device used by the Decepticons to destroy the sun. Now that the device has been found, the Decepticons' action will begin immediately. They can't just sit back and watch the device being destroyed, because once the device is destroyed, they can't activate the device to destroy the sun even if they find the Matrix. So, the moment of the decisive battle has arrived, just before all their troops are ready to move over there. Fortunately, at this time, Optimus Prime came back, and brought two new Autobots, who were two Autobots who had just come from the universe. Although the Decepticons have long been entrenched outside the atmosphere, the Earth is so big that the Decepticons can't guard every starry sky. They know that Optimus Prime and others are in danger now, so they forcibly broke into the Earth from a place that the Decepticons didn't notice. Finally, following the information sent by Optimus Prime before, they found the nest base. This time when Optimus Prime went back, he happened to meet them and brought them together. One of the two Autobots was the Inspector, a fat man with great skills and amazing fighting power. At this time, the two Autobots seemed to be unable to produce much effect, but their appearance at least provided them with a lot of morale. At least they still had reinforcements, but they came a little slower and less. Optimus Prime, you are back just in time. Optimus Prime had just returned when Qianxia immediately found him. What's wrong? Is there any situation? Optimus Prime asked in confusion. Team Dragon has found the Decepticon device and is now planning to use high-powered weapons to destroy it, but I think the Decepticons must have known Team Dragon's action plan. I estimate that by tomorrow morning at the latest, before the large weapons that can destroy the pyramid are in place, the Decepticons will attack us, so, we must find the Matrix immediately and start this decisive battle with the Decepticons. Qianxia explained the situation. The time has come for them to start this battle against the Decepticons. Indeed, in this case, the Decepticons will definitely take action in advance, but finding the Matrix may not be necessary, Optimus Prime said, and he already had an idea in his mind. Do you want to prevent the Matrix from merging with the device? Qianxia looked at Optimus Prime. He guessed what Optimus Prime was really thinking at the moment, but he also had a reason for doing so and making such arrangements. Yes, the Matrix has not been found. Even if we cannot destroy the device, the Decepticons cannot use the device to destroy the sun, but if the Matrix is found, they can use it as a breakthrough point to directly snatch the Matrix and fuse the device to destroy the sun. This is equivalent to putting the entire Earth in the most dangerous place. Optimus Prime's consideration is the most in line with the principle of protecting the Earth. You should still remember my real purpose that I told you before, right? Qianxia asked back. Do you want to use the Matrix to force the integration of the armies of various countries? Optimus Prime looked at Qianxia in surprise. Yes, this is the effect I want, Qianxia replied. If it's just an offensive device, then we can slowly mobilize the powerful firepower from the periphery to attack. Although the Decepticons are numerous and powerful, they can never match the global military forces. Just a single aircraft carrier fleet can send out hundreds of fighters, and all the Decepticons may add up to hundreds of them. But how many of them can enter the air to fight with the fighters? What's more, we have 10,000 or 20,000 special forces gathered here alone, and over time, the troops mobilized from all over the world can reach millions. Cybertron may be able to compete with the Earth in its heyday, but under the current background, it is impossible for these Decepticons to fight the Earth army head-on. Qianxia's analysis is reasonable. This is a frontal offensive battle, and the Decepticons' weakness when facing the Earth army. Of course, this does not mean that the Decepticons will not pose a threat to the Earth. But the threat of the Decepticons to the Earth must be when the Earth cannot concentrate its forces and firepower to fight them. Like now, the Decepticons directly destroyed the global communication network. Humans lost the ability to communicate globally, and the efficiency of rapid response operations would be lost. If the Decepticons did not use the device to destroy the sun, they could directly attack any point on the Earth and definitely cause huge damage to that point. Just like the Nest base. Now Scientia and his team have enough intelligence, because the Decepticons want to directly destroy the sun through the device, which has led to this situation. Therefore, the Matrix must be taken out. Only when the Matrix is found and the Decepticons know where the Matrix is, can this war between the two sides be directly launched. This is not only an opportunity to unite the armies of all parties in the region, but also an opportunity to fight a decisive battle with the Decepticons. Although the result of this battle is likely to cause the death of many soldiers, it is definitely the fastest way to resolve the Decepticon crisis. Chapter 684 The decisive battle begins. Although Optimus Prime wanted to protect the Earth in the simplest way, he had to admit that Scientia's arrangement was the best. So, they finally set out to the location of the Matrix immediately. Their actions were soon observed by the sound waves in space, and their troops began to mobilize quickly. Send a telegram to the headquarters and tell them that we have determined the location of the Matrix and need nearby troops to cooperate in the battle. At the same time, tell them to do their best to destroy the pyramid containing the device in the shortest time. We don't have the time to slowly mobilize the army, Scientia said directly to Tom, who was sitting in the back seat of Bumblebee's car. Tom had a telegraph in his hand, and at this moment he was typing at a very fast speed to quickly spread the Morse code. Soon, the headquarters had received the relevant code content, and they immediately began to mobilize the troops deployed in the surrounding area. However, when they contacted these station troops, they suddenly discovered a problem. Although station troops suddenly lost contact. Just as Scientia and his men locked the location of the Matrix, the Decepticons had already begun to act. A large number of fireballs fell from the sky, and the first target of the attack was the aircraft carrier fleet stationed in the Red Sea area. Although the entire aircraft carrier fleet was not destroyed at once, the core aircraft carrier and several surrounding warships with long-range attack weapons or helicopters were all destroyed. In addition, several important military bases near Egypt, especially those with a large number of fighter jets, were also attacked. And this attack was different from the previous ones. It was not that Shockwave suddenly controlled the Cybertron driller to attack, but a large number of fireballs fell directly from space. Soundwave controlled the last remaining military satellite in the world. During the past period of time, while the Earth was deploying troops, he was also accurately locating all key targets. The headquarters soon received accurate intelligence from the survivors of those bases and telegrams from the warships outside the aircraft carrier fleet. How is this possible? Admiral Mitchell slapped the table angrily. What's wrong? Representatives from various countries looked over. The Decepticons fell directly from space in the same way as meteorites, instantly destroying an aircraft carrier formation we deployed in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden, Mitchell explained, but as soon as he said this, he immediately caused an uproar in the audience. We just received news that many Air Force bases in Egypt have suffered devastating attacks, and the attack method is also similar to that of meteorites, the Egyptian representative said. Not only that, all Air Force bases near the tip of the dagger, as well as some relatively powerful military bases, have been attacked in this way. They want to completely destroy our support capabilities in the vicinity and completely isolate our troops. Everyone present at this time has understood the specific situation. They all know that this is the Decepticons' action plan. This is a military strike specifically targeting the Earth, and such a strike has only one purpose, to complete the final and most important strategic offensive. Immediately send an order to all special forces scattered in the tip of the dagger area to move closer to the Dragon team and the Nest troops. Soon, the headquarters also made the final decision. Send a message to all the countries participating in this military cooperation, and ask them to send all the troops they can at all costs to the battlefield as quickly as possible. We have only two core goals, either to destroy the pyramid containing the device that destroys the sun, or to protect the Matrix from being stolen. As long as we can keep any of these two conditions, we can avoid this world-destroying disaster. At this moment, everyone present truly realized how huge a threat this war was to them. There were not many Decepticons. In the past, they had only seen a few or a dozen, and even the recent battle of the Nest base only dispatched about 100 Decepticons. But this time it was different. Just from the data collected from various places on the sneak attacks on aircraft carriers and military bases, at least 200 Decepticons could be found. Moreover, this was not just a matter of the number of Decepticons, they also possessed a super weapon that could directly destroy the sun. If they lost this battle, the Earth would be completely doomed. Maybe they would never see the sun tomorrow again. Global Military Alliance. At this moment, all these representatives have understood how far-sighted Xianxia's idea is. This young boy who looks so young has been doing the most beneficial things for the entire Earth and guiding the direction of the Earth. In the Egyptian desert, Xianxia has arrived at the temple where the Matrix is located with the Nest troops. Xianxia went directly into it and took out the Matrix. Moreover, this is not the Matrix after desertification, but it has been complete from the beginning. This is not a movie, no one needs to be tested. Optimus Prime is here. After Xianxia got the Matrix, he immediately gave it to Optimus Prime for safekeeping. At this moment, Optimus Prime followed Xianxia's instructions and directly integrated the Matrix into his fire. The Matrix is different from the Rubik's Cube. It does not contain primitive energy and does not conflict with Optimus Prime's energy device, which leads to Optimus Prime's death. On the contrary, the powerful energy of the Matrix provides Optimus Prime with more powerful combat power. At this moment, Optimus Prime is definitely the strongest state of Optimus Prime in all periods. Optimus Prime, there is a meteor in the sky, Ratchet reminded, and at this moment, all the soldiers of the Nest troops looked up. That's not a meteor, it's the Decepticon troops coming. Xianxia only took a glance and determined what the other party was. Everyone, find a shelter immediately, or lie down and hide on the spot, and be ready to fight immediately after the collision. Xianxia gave a direct order, and more than 300 special forces immediately began to invade, and the Autobots also hit it the first time. They must persist in this battle no matter what, because only by persisting can they complete the final counterattack. This is different from the last time. Although the last time was thrilling, they still had room for maneuver at that time. This time, it will be the final battle between the Autobots and the Decepticons, and the Earth and Cybertron. Because all the Decepticons have already joined the battle. Chapter 685 Strengthen Optimus Prime. Boom boom boom. In one breath, more than 30 fireballs hit the desert, and even several fell on the temple, almost blowing up the magnificent building into ruins. More than 300 to nearly 400 Nest troops, under the attack of these fireballs alone, more than 70 people were killed or injured. The most important thing is that these are not all Decepticons, but only those from space. At this time, there are still a large number of Decepticons attacking this side from all directions, and Megatron is one of them. Since they can locate us so accurately, why is there only such a small part falling from the sky? Epps asked in confusion. Their special forces have all retreated to the vicinity of the temple at this moment. They can only fight those Decepticons with the help of the terrain here. I guess they must have used this method to sneak attack many of our support points on the periphery, Xianxia answered. He has not received any news from the headquarters yet, and does not know that the aircraft carrier formation and many bases have been destroyed by the Decepticons in this way. But he can guess a little. Nest troops, this is the Wolf Warriors, we are approaching you, please give us the exact coordinates. The Wolf Warrior's voice came from the shortwave communicator. Great, we are now surrounded, in a temple 20 kilometers from your location, please provide support immediately. Lennox immediately picked up the shortwave communicator and sent a message to the Wolf Warriors. Received, we will set out to support immediately. The communication was hung up, but it was confirmed that the other party was on the way to support with all their strength. Now it depends on how long we can hold on, Xianxia said. There are more than 100 Decepticons here. Even if the Wolf Warriors come, they can't beat them, right? Simon said. They came, and we still couldn't defeat them. But we originally planned to fight together. We have dozens of special forces distributed in the entire area pointed by the dagger tip. As long as a team fights the Decepticons, they can immediately contact each other through shortwave communicators, and then all move towards one point. In other words, as long as we can wait for the first support team to arrive, the second support team will never be more than 20 kilometers away from us. Maybe there will be other teams approaching in other directions at the same time, Xianxia explained. And Simon, who heard these explanations, suddenly realized how wise Xianxia's previous arrangement was. We still have more than 200 people. They should be able to reach the distance of 20 kilometers in less than 10 minutes. They should be able to hold on for this time, right? Agent Simon asked another question. It's hard to say. Chelsea came to them in the form of a robot. What do you mean? Simon looked confused. Your plan is very good, but in your plan, you definitely didn't expect that the other side would send out more than 100 Decepticons to attack at once, right? Chelsea asked back. Almost at the moment when she finished speaking, a shell landed directly in front of them. The huge explosion produced a lot of smoke and dust, covering the surrounding area. The Decepticons' attack speed was much faster than they expected. Stop talking. If we continue like this, we won't be able to resist the arrival of the reinforcements. Qianxia knew very well how fast these Decepticons were moving at the moment. They prepared so many special forces here to prevent any eventuality, and the Decepticons would naturally come up with a special way to deal with this kind of layout. It can be seen from the fact that the Decepticons forcibly destroyed all the surrounding air bases and aircraft carrier fleets. How about we replicate the previous Nest troops combat method again? Chelsea looked at Qianxia and said. No. Qianxia shook his head and rejected Chelsea's proposal. With the experience of the last Nest base, the Decepticons must have been on guard against this. If we use the same method this time, we will probably be blown to ashes by them before we rush to the edge of the encirclement. Qianxia knew very well that this kind of thing can only happen once, especially after they had successfully used this method to delay time once before. Then we can only defend desperately, Optimus Prime said, then stood up suddenly, and kept pulling the trigger of the weapon in his hand, and shells whizzed out from the muzzle. In an instant, a Decepticon who was approaching quickly was hit by several shells and fell to the ground. Optimus Prime's weapon is now more powerful, and its energy has been greatly increased, which also makes him more handy when attacking. It is not difficult for him to smash a Decepticon to pieces in an instant. With Optimus Prime's lead, the other Autobots also burst out with very strong fighting power at this time, especially Bumblebee and Inspector. The two rushed out directly and fought with the two huge Decepticons. Even though there is a big difference in their size, Bumblebee and Inspector still knocked them down quickly. However, it is not only the Autobots who have the same strong fighting power. After discovering that the Decepticon team's attack was blocked, Shockwave finally started to move out. The huge Cybertron dredge suddenly emerged from the ground and rushed towards Bumblebee and the Inspector. The two of them reacted very quickly and began to dodge the moment they noticed something strange underground, but they were still affected by the huge body of the Cybertron dredge. At this moment, the two of them were directly hit by a tentacle of the dredge and their bodies were thrown out. Seeing that the dredge was still rushing towards Qianxia at the fastest speed. As long as this guy is not eliminated, our position will not be able to hold for a moment. Optimus Prime suddenly put down his steel mask, opened the aircraft behind him, and flew directly. After flying, Optimus Prime's speed increased significantly, and the weapons in his hands also changed from large caliber guns to energy swords and energy axes. In a dive, Optimus Prime came directly in front of the Cybertron driller. Before the controller Shockwave could react, one of the driller's tentacles had been cut off by the energy sword. Optimus Prime, Shockwave looked at Optimus Prime at this moment and felt unbelievable. It was only a dozen days since he last saw him, but the current Optimus Prime was completely different from when he was in the Nest Army. What kind of power could make Optimus Prime so powerful in such a short time? Chapter 686, Brutal War. Shockwave, die? Optimus Prime would not chat with Shockwave. For their war, the Cybertron driller was the biggest threat. So, no matter what, Optimus Prime had to get rid of it as soon as possible. No, Shockwave had realized that Optimus Prime's target must be the Cybertron driller. He roared, and then raised the gun in his hand, trying to drive Optimus Prime away from the Cybertron driller. But at the moment he raised his weapon, a bullet flew accurately from a distance and hit the muzzle of his raised gun. In an instant, the shell fired by Shockwave's weapon collided with a bullet at the muzzle. The shell that was supposed to fly out to attack the target exploded directly on the spot at this moment, and the shockwave it generated caused Shockwave's arm to be severely injured instantly, and Shockwave himself was in a painful wail at this moment. This brief panic and loss of control gave Optimus Prime enough time. At this moment, Optimus Prime swung his weapon and chopped at the head of the Cybertron driller. After finding that the damage of the weapon was not enough to cut off the entire head, he quickly flew into the air, stretched out two weapons from his back, and continuously attacked from the wound. In just a few seconds, the huge head of the Cybertron driller was completely broken. The Cybertron driller was huge and powerful. But its life was also fragile. At this moment, the head was broken, and it immediately lost all its ability to move. It collapsed to the ground powerlessly and turned into a pile of scrap metal. Optimus Prime, Shockwave roared. He wanted to change his hand to attack, but more bullets began to pour towards him. The first bullet directly hit the energy device on his chest. The bullet shot into the energy device and immediately detonated the energy in the energy device. In an instant, Shockwave, who was originally one of the most powerful warriors in the Decepticon camp, had lost his vitality. "Little reptile, you are so annoying," an angry voice came from midair, and Megatron suddenly appeared above Sciantia's head and punched Sciantia hard. Sciantia, Chelsea was the first to react. She rolled over and immediately came to Sciantia's side. She didn't have time to push Sciantia away, and she took Megatron's punch with her body. This punch instantly broke half of Chelsea's body parts, and Chelsea's vitality also dropped rapidly at this moment. When the body size and strength are not at the same level, the gap between each other's attacks is too big. In the movie, Jazz was torn apart by Megatron's hands, and it was also because of this. Chelsea didn't care about her own injuries. She knew very well that Sciantia's existence was no less important to this war than Optimus Prime, the leader of the Autobots. Although Sciantia felt sorry for Chelsea, he also knew that he couldn't hesitate on this matter. At this moment, Sciantia could only turn over quickly and start to dodge. Megatron saw that Sciantia was about to escape, and immediately threw another punch in anger. But Chelsea no longer cared whether she would die or not. She used up her last strength and took another attack from Megatron. After this time, Chelsea's life energy completely disappeared. It was under Chelsea's desperate protection that Sciantia successfully moved to a safe area. Bumblebee and the Inspector had returned to the battlefield. They used their powerful firepower to suppress Megatron directly. All the soldiers around also turned their guns and poured countless bullets on Megatron. Faced with such a situation, Megatron could only quickly change into a fighter plane and left the place with a jet. Megatron, Optimus Prime watched another comrade die, and he was furious. He urged his aircraft to chase him. "Optimus Prime, hold on," Sciantia's voice came. "The Matrix is on you. If you are in danger because of the pursuit, no one can save you now," Sciantia said, and Optimus Prime, who heard Sciantia's words, also controlled his anger at the last moment. Wars are always tragic. No matter who you are, you may die on the battlefield. This is true for Hung Pao, Ironhide, and Chelsea at this moment. If you want their sacrifice not to be in vain, you can only try your best to win this war. "Optimus Prime, I'm here," Jazz's voice came. He brought the Wolf Special Forces and finally rushed over at this critical moment. The Wolf Special Forces of 500 people may not play a role in turning the tide of the entire battlefield, but their appearance has greatly relieved the combat pressure on the Nest Force. In the battle just now, their Nest Force has lost more than 200 soldiers, and now only more than 100 people are struggling to support it. At this moment, the addition of these 500 special forces instantly shared the pressure. Moreover, they cut in from the periphery, which is equivalent to providing a breakthrough point and a direction for the surrounded Nest Force on the battlefield to retreat. "Quick, everyone retreat to the support direction of the Wolf Special Forces and cover Optimus Prime," Sciantia gave the order, and this time it was not at the Nest base. Everyone covered him. Instead, everyone had to cover Optimus Prime, because the Matrix was on Optimus Prime. 3-3 system, 3 people in a team, 3 teams in a group. Remember to take care of each other and guard the corners. Don't fight alone blindly. When Sciantia approached the Wolf Special Forces, their captain's words were also received by Sciantia's communication system. At this moment, Sciantia was extremely shocked. Although they were all special forces, the fighting style of the Wolf Special Forces made Sciantia feel that it was completely different from the Nest Force. They were not weaklings on the battlefield, and they were not people who could only passively fight back due to the limitations of the battlefield. Even though they were far behind those Decepticons in terms of number, firepower configuration, and power comparison, they had planned all the combat plans from the beginning, and they were forcibly controlling the rhythm of the battle in their own hands. "Is this the civilization that gave birth to my father?" Sciantia was extremely shocked. He suddenly looked forward to what it would be like if he could go to a world based on such a civilization. At this moment, Sciantia stopped and looked at the people from the Wolf Special Forces around him, who were advancing towards the fierce artillery fire from the Decepticons. Chapter 687 Disparate Moment. The battlefield at this moment was completely different from what Sciantia had imagined at the beginning. He thought that the arrival of the Wolf Special Forces was nothing more than the same as the Nest troops, relying on numbers and lives to delay for a longer time and wait for more troops to come to support. But the result was that this special force of 500 people directly took the initiative on the battlefield in a short time. The weapons they used were similar to those of the Nest troops, but their combat efficiency was surprisingly high. 3 soldiers, a sniper, a chargeman, and a gunner. The sniper focused on the vital points of the Decepticons, and the chargeman and the gunner covered with strong firepower. If there were only 3 people like this, facing such a powerful robot as the Decepticons, it would still be difficult to produce any deterrent effect. But next to these 3 soldiers, there were another 6 soldiers. They also had the same configuration, but attacked in the same way from different directions. Since Lennox and others knew what weapons could be used to cause damage to Transformers, the Decepticons were not immune to the attacks of human soldiers. Once hit in the vital points or hit by powerful weapons, the Decepticons could still be killed. In a head-on battle, the Decepticons can protect their vital parts and then suppress them with powerful firepower. But how can a Decepticon defend against attacks from 3 different directions at the same time? Fortunately, there are many Decepticons, and the Wolf Special Forces can't act on every Decepticon at the same time. Therefore, this war has become a tug-of-war between the 2 sides, with constant pulling and casualties on both sides. However, this state is a great shame for the Decepticons. They are Decepticons, and more than 100 Decepticons are facing 500 Earthlings, and they are evenly matched with them. This is simply a loss of face for them. Moreover, in this war, the longer they delay, the more passive they will be. If the participation of these hundreds of human soldiers delays the progress, and more human soldiers come later, they, the Decepticons, may have no choice but to admit defeat. Decepticons, missile coverage, Megatron gave the order directly. In an instant, dozens of Decepticons adjusted their status at the same time, and dozens of missiles suddenly shot out from them. Faced with such intensive artillery attacks, all the tactics of the Wolf Special Forces were ineffective, and they had to avoid such damage. So everyone began to hide. A large number of missiles fell, and an area of more than 1,000 meters was instantly covered with flames and artillery fragments, and the number of casualties rose rapidly at this moment. After the missile bombing, the Decepticons launched a second round of charge. They originally thought that after such an attack, the so-called defensive tactics and offensives of humans were completely useless, and they could drive straight in. But the final result shocked the Decepticons again. Even though the number of people had been reduced by more than 1/3, even though the entire battlefield was in a mess, these Wolf Special Forces reformed the same formation in the short time when the Decepticons launched the attack. The 3-3 system does not require 3 fixed people to cooperate with each other. No matter who they are with or under what circumstances, they can instantly form the same camp and produce the best combat effect in the same way. Even if 3 snipers rely on each other, they can play a main attack, a cover, and a coordination, and improve the combat capability of the entire team to the best. I know how we lost back then. Lennox climbed out of the gun pit at this moment, looking at the troops in front of him who were covering them, and sighed sincerely. It's not that their ancestors were too weak, and they couldn't beat the opponent's backward equipment with top-level weapons, but the opponent was too strong, and they used tactics and fighting will to the extreme. At this moment, they can achieve such results when facing mechanical life forms such as Decepticons, let alone their ancestors who were also just humans. Don't think about these useless things, quickly imitate their combat skills, organize the offensive in the same way, and cooperate with them to deal with Decepticons. Xianxia has reacted at this time. He is very clear about the importance of this incident. There can't be any mistakes. They must persist until more troops are involved in the battle. Lennox and others finally reacted after hearing Xianxia's reminder. So, the remaining soldiers of the Nest troops began to imitate the fighting style of the Wolf Special Forces. Although it only has the form but not the spirit, the effect it produces is already very different from before. In addition, there are also the Autobots joining in. The firepower of these Autobots can compete with the Decepticons. When the human soldiers delay, it is the time for the Autobots to launch a killing move. Damn humans, Megatron was commanding from behind. Seeing that the pace of the attack was blocked again, and seeing that the troops he led could not quickly clear out a group of human soldiers, he was very angry. What made him even more angry was that at this moment, News came from the pyramid that the 7 special forces of humans had formed a joint team and began to launch a fierce attack on the pyramid. Unlike the battle on Xianxia's side, which was triggered temporarily, the dragon team on the pyramid side was the first to discover the existence of the device, and then began to deploy the surrounding troops in advance to participate. Therefore, on the pyramid side, the human forces are now dominant. That is, they do not have large weapons and no support from fighter jets, otherwise they would have already captured the pyramid and completely destroyed the device inside. Charge, even if you fall, you must crush the human beings. Megatron could not care too much at this time. He had to take away the Matrix anyway. Only in this way could they quickly complete the counterattack and completely crush the human race, which was like an ant. As Megatron gave this order, all the Decepticons were like crazy in an instant, and began to rush forward regardless of everything. The desperate resistance of the human soldiers was no longer effective at this time. Because these Decepticons didn't even care about being attacked. Even if they died, they would force a bunch of human soldiers to be buried with them. In such a situation, both sides could only exchange their lives for lives, and then use this way of exchanging lives to buy time. At this critical moment, when the humans were about to be unable to resist, a voice like timely rain came from the communicator. The Polar Bear Special Forces have arrived at the battlefield. The Eurobot Special Forces have arrived at the battlefield. The Lion King Special Forces have arrived at the battlefield. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 688 Support arrives. 3 special forces appeared from 3 directions at the same time. On weekdays, these special forces from different countries would never unite together, and they would not fight very hard. But this time the situation was different. Their 8 fleets deployed on the periphery and their military bases scattered around were all destroyed. A war in a place they could not see had already killed and injured tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of people. Such a tragic war made all of them realize more clearly that this was not a simple war, but a matter of life and death for mankind. They were special forces, the most elite soldiers in various countries and regions, and they were fighting for the great cause of protecting their homes in the earth. Naturally, they all took out the courage to fight to the death. Therefore, this battle can be said to be the most united battle between humans in the history of the earth. Similarly, the Decepticons, as invaders, were also equally brave and fearless. Although they were invading, these Decepticons were fanatics, and they believed that only by destroying humans could they save their own race and restore the former glory of Cybertron. Therefore, the Decepticons' attacks were equally crazy and desperate. Most of the Decepticons were desperately attacking the Nest troops and the Wolf Special Forces. Only a small number of Decepticons were fighting in the other 3 directions. The Decepticons' target was the Matrix, and their target was Optimus Prime. Optimus Prime, are you really going to abandon our race for such a backward world? Megatron had already rushed to Optimus Prime, and the 2 Cybertron leaders had already started fighting each other. At the same time, there were 3 other Decepticons beside Optimus Prime, all of whom were equally large and elite among the Decepticons. Even though Optimus Prime's strength had been strengthened, he still encountered many crises when facing the siege of 4 Decepticons including Megatron at the same time. Quick, protect Optimus Prime, he must not get into trouble, Xianxia shouted loudly, and he was the first to pick up a submachine gun and rush towards the direction where Optimus Prime was. Dozens of human soldiers around him, whether from the Nest troops or the Wolf Special Forces, were also rushing to support at the fastest speed. Human, your opponent is us. A bird made of steel suddenly appeared in front of Xianxia, and its claws turned into machine guns, firing wildly at the position where Xianxia was. Oh my god, Xianxia reacted quickly and rolled to the side, barely avoiding the fatal blow. Lennox, who was following behind Xianxia, immediately raised his gun and fired at the big bird. The big bird rolled quickly and dodged the attack at a very fast speed in midair. At the same time, a scorpion-like robot rushed out from under the ground. Not far away, a cheetah-like Decepticon was also approaching quickly. The small and medium-sized creatures in the Decepticon team actually appeared on the battlefield collectively at this time. Their target was obviously specifically targeting Xianxia and other humans. Damn, I didn't pay much attention to these little guys in the previous battle, But I didn't expect them to jump out and cause trouble now. Xianxia felt a headache for a while when facing these little Decepticons. The performance of small Decepticons in the movie is average, and they are easily solved by Bumblebee or Skyfire. But when facing humans, these guys have an advantage that other Decepticons lack, that is, they are extremely fast. Cheetah, Scorpion, Falcon, and some other smaller ones shuttled among the crowd, constantly hindering the speed of human support for Optimus Prime. Bumblebee, Jazz, hurry up to support Optimus Prime. Skyfire saw that he had no time to support, and immediately called Bumblebee and Jazz. The two also realized the seriousness of the problem at this time, and Optimus Prime was their boss, so naturally they rushed to support him at the first time. The result of going to them was similar to that of Skyfire. Several Decepticons who suddenly rushed out immediately stopped Bumblebee and Jazz, and other Autobots were also entangled by the Decepticons. In this case, let alone supporting Optimus Prime, they could not even save themselves. Although the support has arrived, it still can't change the outcome, Lennox asked himself helplessly, looking at Optimus Prime, who is already at a disadvantage and almost unable to hold on in the battle. Boom! Suddenly, a violent explosion sounded, and a Decepticon who had just wanted to launch a sneak attack on Optimus Prime was blown away in an instant. At this moment, everyone subconsciously looked up at the sky. There, a fighter plane that Megatron had never seen before appeared. Fighter plane? Haven't all the military bases around here been destroyed long ago? How come there are fighter planes at this time? Megatron also saw the fighter planes in the sky and immediately felt that something was wrong. Once a fighter plane appears, the situation on the battlefield will undergo a major change, because behind a fighter plane, there is often a whole fighter plane formation. In addition, if a fighter plane can take off, then this place must have good firepower, and it must not be too far away from here. The fighter formation has arrived at the battlefield, locked the attack target, all Decepticons, a communication came, and then more than a dozen fighter planes appeared in the sky. Their firepower continued to pour down, and direct fire missiles that did not need to rely on satellite positioning hit the Decepticons accurately. At this moment, the advantage that the Decepticons had worked so hard to build up collapsed in an instant. It's the backup force of the Werewolf Special Forces, and they are all from the Eastern Great Power. Lennox looked at the fighter planes and was extremely surprised. At this time, even their country, which has military bases all over the world, could not send fighter planes for support, but he did not expect that the fighter planes of the Eastern Great Power would appear in time. He couldn't figure out how this was done. Today's battle, the Eastern Great Power really brought him too much shock. Quick, rescue Optimus Prime. Xianxia was also shocked, but he adjusted himself after a short moment. He quickly walked forward and provided fire support to the position where Optimus Prime was. With the fighter planes already establishing an advantage, the support of the ground forces also quickly produced an effect. Chapter 689, Turning Defeat into Victory. At this moment, the time for counterattack has come. More troops began to enter the battlefield, and other special forces in the surrounding area finally arrived at the battlefield after a non-stop journey. For a time, the human army had the advantage in numbers, and with the fighter jets in the air, the lack of firepower was also made up. In just a few minutes, the original human struggle turned into a strong counterattack. Almost half of the more than 100 Decepticons fell in these few minutes. Seeing this situation, Megatron knew that no matter how hard he tried, he would not succeed. He immediately switched to the form of a fighter and wanted to escape from here. Air formation, lock Megatron, don't let him escape, Xianxia said, and the fighter formation in the sky immediately locked the target on Megatron, and all the fighters chased him. Megatron's speed was originally much faster than these fighters. But at this time, he had just taken off, and although the speed of those fighters was not as fast as him, the speed of the missiles was faster. Several missiles locked directly on him and then flew over with a whistle. Boom! A missile hit the tail wing of the fuselage directly, and Megatron immediately fell from midair. Optimus Prime looked at Megatron, who was beginning to fall. He was just beaten very badly, so he immediately picked up the energy axe beside him and threw it towards Megatron's position. The huge energy directly hit Megatron. Megatron, who was already injured by the missile attack, was injured again at this moment. Megatron even lost his ability to move. The fighter planes in the sky would not give Megatron a chance to breathe. Another series of missiles flew out, and this time, not only one hit, but all the missiles fell on Megatron at the same time. The Decepticon leader who led the Decepticons to defeat the Autobots and became the ruler of Cybertron, finally fell into the hands of these Earthlings. At this moment, with the death of Megatron, all the Decepticons lost a motivation to continue fighting. Some capable Decepticons fled, but more Decepticons were killed under the siege of the human army. On the Pyramid side, under the firepower of more special forces, the Pyramid and the sun-destroying device hidden inside it were finally razed to the ground. This was the final result of this war. The Decepticons were defeated, and humans successfully annihilated all the Decepticons' large forces. Humans also reached an unprecedented military cooperation. The global military forces gathered together to win this war with aliens. Soon, all the special forces gathered together, and the casualties of all parties were counted. On the human side, the Nest Force and the Wolf Special Forces, who directly participated in the battle, suffered the most casualties. The remaining people in the two teams were only dozens and hundreds respectively, and the reduction reached 80%. There were also many serious casualties in other special forces. But compared with the main battlefield, the casualties of humans in the sneak attacks on the periphery before the war began were the greatest. An aircraft carrier formation, more than a dozen Air Force bases and war bases close to the battlefield were all destroyed, and more than half of the personnel were killed or injured. The total number of deaths in this war reached 50,000. The Autobots also suffered heavy losses. Before the war, there were nearly 10 Autobots. Now, only 5 Autobots survived. Optimus Prime, Bumblebee, Jazz, Inspector, and Ratchet. But the Autobots will still expand in the future, because some Autobots that appeared in the third movie have not yet appeared. The Decepticons are different. This time, in order to win the war, Megatron directly called out the Decepticon army that would only appear in the third movie. After this war, there were more than 300 Decepticons, but only less than 100 Decepticons escaped. The elite of the Decepticons were almost killed or wounded, including Megatron, Shockwave, and Starscream. Now the Decepticon camp only has Soundwave in charge of the overall situation in space, and at most the fallen King Kong on Cybertron, who was afraid of the power of the Elders and never took action. But no matter what, both sides of this war suffered heavy losses, and after this war, basically, it is impossible for another war to break out in a few years. Megatron is dead, and the Decepticon camp has also suffered heavy losses. Now that Earth has formed a military alliance, without anyone to organize and directly break it, the Decepticons have no chance of launching an attack on Earth. The war seems to have ended early due to some circumstances. The voice of the Great Clock came, and it was obvious that it had calculated the direction of the situation in the next period of time through the current situation. Did it say that Earth is still the Unicron, and Cybertron will still fight a desperate battle with Earth? Scientia was puzzled, and these were all told to him by his father. With the current situation on Earth, a global military alliance has been established. Even if Cybertron really wants to attack Earth, Earth has the ability to deal with it. Moreover, you should wait here quietly for more than 10 years. The Great Clock gave advice, not advice to Earth, but only to Scientia. Are you saying that I should let go of this world and go to the next universe? Scientia didn't expect that the Great Clock would make such a suggestion just after he won. You can't stay here and lead the development of this world. Everything you have done so far has built a complete framework for the Earth. Why not let this framework develop naturally and let them grow and mature on their own? The Great Clock suggested. Yes, no matter what the Great Clock said, it was a suggestion based on its program. Have you simulated the future development direction of the Earth? Scientia asked. Yes, the time simulation system has performed multiple complete calculations based on the current parameters and the gap in the original timeline, the Great Clock replied. What was the result? Scientia asked. 2 years later, Optimus Prime will resurrect Megatron, but because he lacks Megatron as a helper, his plan cannot be realized. Later, after humans investigated the truth, he was directly expelled by Optimus Prime. After that, Megatron once returned to Earth with the Transformers hunters, but was directly blocked outside the Earth by the Global Military Alliance. Because of the existence of the Global Military Alliance and the connection established between the human race as a whole and the Autobots, many disasters in the original timeline did not happen. Chapter 690 Pacific Rim. Have you excluded me from your calculations? Scientia asked a key question. His existence is crucial to the entire Earth, because his existence can dominate everything. Therefore, if the calculation result of the Big Clock includes him, it will not be able to calculate the most accurate result. Yes, the result of this calculation does not include you, The big clock gave a positive answer. Okay, Xianxia was speechless. It has come to this point, and he still insisted on staying. There is no point. Send this information of mine to the Global Military Alliance, and send a secret document to Optimus Prime separately, Xianxia said, while sorting out the two documents in the dark matter computer. The big clock received the contents of the two messages and immediately sent them out. At the same time, Xianxia had already come to Bumblebee. Brother, I should go. You should work hard with Optimus Prime in the future. After Xianxia said this, he directly spread a pair of white wings and flew into the sky. At this moment, Xianxia was still in the Special Forces camp of the Global Military Alliance. All the Special Forces from all over the world are here. Xianxia suddenly appeared in this form, and everyone was immediately attracted. This, Agent Simon, Lennox and other people who are very familiar with Xianxia were all shocked. Even though Agent Simon had long known that Xianxia had very magical powers, he was also amazed to see Xianxia in this posture. So, you are an angel? Agent Simon asked, and his question made the people around him look at him in surprise. The crisis of the Earth is far more than this, but I have laid a good foundation for you. I believe that you can rely on your own strength to complete the protection of the Earth in the future. After Xianxia finished speaking, he turned around. A strong light fell from the sky, and Xianxia followed a light and flew directly out of the sky. He completely disappeared in the sky and left so suddenly. The whole military camp was in an uproar, and tens of thousands of soldiers were unbelievable. But soon, a secret file recorded in the 7th district was made public. It was the description of Li Qiangyun by the district chief of the 7th district. Then, people all over the world had a feeling that they were all blessed by heaven, and that it was the gods in the dark who sent this angel to the mortal world just to guide them to this point today. In the original calculation of the big clock, there was no such action of Xianxia, and now this action has obviously made the original calculation result more perfect. Because Xianxia's state has given the world's human beings a foundation of faith, it is God who guides and creates everything now. Therefore, the subsequent development of the entire Earth will follow the current framework, constantly improve and expand. Some eternal contradictions and doubts that may have existed will also be greatly reduced under this situation. In fact, there is no need to do this last step, the big clock said after Xianxia completely concealed his whereabouts. I have been very happy during this time here, and doing this thing can be regarded as giving them more benefits, Xianxia said with a smile. It is actually very interesting to fight in a mecha world as a mortal. As long as you are satisfied, the big clock just gave such an evaluation. Anyway, the experience of the infinite dimensional universe is just an experience process for Xianxia. No matter which world it is in or what it is. Then, it's time to start heading to the next dimensional universe. After Xianxia finished speaking, he awakened the power of crossing dimensions in his memory. This power was created by his father and infinite at the same time, and only Xianxia, who possesses the power of both of them, can use it. As the energy was activated, a passage appeared in front of Xianxia again, and he walked in without hesitation. Things in this world are always unfamiliar the second time, and after the previous experience, Xianxia naturally became more adept at it this time. Cross the dimensional passage, then quickly locate the location of the Earth, and then retrieve the information of the Earth to determine which world this will be. Strange, why can't any special situation be detected? Xianxia was confused again this time. When they were in the Transformers world before, the random search of the big clock in the periphery did not produce any results, but after entering the Earth, they directly read the dark data and understood the situation. But this time, after they entered the Earth, no matter how they read it, the information of the entire world was completely normal, without any special features. Without reference events, people, and objects, it is impossible to determine what kind of world this world is, the big clock replied. What should we do now? Xianxia was also confused. In this situation, he had no idea where to start. Perhaps, we can live here for a while first, and then slowly look for it. The big clock did not have any accurate suggestions, and could only give a solution that was not a solution. It seems that this is the only way. Xianxia also knew that this was a solution without any solution. So, he began to tidy up his state and landed directly in a large city in Eastern Asia. He forged an identity and temporarily found an apartment to live in. After settling down, Xianxia searched through all the history of this world on Earth in detail, from before the birth of mankind to the present. originally thought that there might be some discoveries in this process, but after searching, he found that there was nothing wrong with it. This is the same normal world as his father said, the normal world before he traveled through time. Could it be that I traveled through time to my father's hometown? Xianxia began to have such doubts in his heart. If this conjecture is true, it would be too exciting. It means that Xianxia has found a way to return to the starting point of infinite dimensions, from a single world. It is not just traveling between infinite dimensional universes. However, his conjecture was soon broken because the real event suddenly happened. A huge space-time crack was detected on the bottom of the Pacific Ocean. The sound of the big clock came out, telling Li Qianxia the real event in this world. The crack on the bottom of the Pacific Ocean, is it the Pacific Rim? Qianxia asked. Yes, a monster has been detected emerging from the crack. The big clock gave a positive answer, but this answer made Qianxia feel lost. Chapter 691 about the three-body world. The Pacific Rim world is indeed a dimensional universe, similar to the Transformers universe. The Pacific Rim world is the world where mechas fight against monsters. Qianxia didn't have much interest at this time. The Pacific Rim world really didn't have much appeal to him, because in the past, Qianxia had arrived at a world where large mechas fought in the infinite multiverse of Marvel. That was the world of the supreme monsters led by the Hulk. The mechas in the Pacific Rim were not at the same level as those in the world of the supreme monsters, and there was no technical content in human operation. What are you going to do next? The big clock asked. They traveled through a dimensional universe, and even if they didn't plan to do anything, they wouldn't be in a hurry to leave, because every time they traveled through a dimensional universe, they would consume energy, so Qianxia needed some time to recover after a travel. Just stay here and watch. Qianxia didn't plan to get involved, so he planned to just be a spectator this time. Standing in space, watching silently from the god's perspective. In the following period of time, monsters appeared one after another, and then humans created large mechas to fight against them. At the beginning, it was okay. Humans relied on these large mechas to quickly defeat the invading monsters. But later, the direction of the world began to change. Countries around the world began to change their strategies. They no longer thought about fighting those monsters, but planned to build a wall to surround the entire Pacific Ocean. People in these countries believed that as long as they did this, they could prevent monsters from breaking into their inland areas and destroying their homes. Human factors are the key to the survival of a world at any time. When Qianxia saw this, he sighed. Yes, this situation is common in elementary civilizations. Even in the era of God creation, the ideas of human beings can still become the key factor in the survival of the world. The big clock made a detailed analysis of Qianxia's sigh. You are talking about the war between angels and demons, and the confrontation between the ideas of the space principle and the god of death Karl, right? Qianxia asked. He did not go to the super god universe, but he knew everything about the super god universe. In the super god civilization, Angel Yan, Qianji King Hexi, and Apocalypse King Liangbing all like to tell the stories of the super god universe to these young people. Among these stories, the most exciting ones are the war between angels and demons, and the battle between the void and the anti-void. Although these two wars are related to the development of science and technology and civilization, they are essentially changes caused by ideas. Because of the difference in thinking between Keisha and Liangbing, a war lasting tens of thousands of years broke out between the two former sisters. Both the space principle and the death god Karl believed in the existence of the void, but they chose two completely different ways when facing the void. The space principle chose to face it head-on, that is, to directly create three powerful gods and challenge the void with powerful force. The death god Karl chose to welcome the void. Not only did he not resist the existence of the void, but he took the initiative to guide the void to come, wanting to use the power of the void to create a more powerful civilization, so as to achieve true immortality and break the curse of ultimate fear. The difference in thought forms has led to the emergence of multiple civilization forms, and is also the main reason why these civilizations will fight each other and practice each other's skills. Therefore, human thought, which seems to be the most insignificant thing, is often the most important factor that can determine the future at a critical moment. I remember my father once said that there is a world called Three Body, in which the Earth civilization originally took the initiative in the war with the Three Body people, and the two sides were already in a state of mutual checks and balances, but at this time, because of the change in people's thoughts, the sword holder, the savior who protected all the people on Earth, became a skeptical existence for everyone. In the end, Because of the wrong choices of a group of people, the overflow of the new sword holder's maternal heart led to the final destruction of the entire civilization, Xianxia sighed. Three-body world, the big clock obviously has a different idea about this world. What's wrong? It seems that you and your father care a lot about this three-body world, Xianxia suddenly remembered to state when Li Qingyun mentioned the three-body world. The development model of the three-body world is quite different from that of the Super God universe and the Marvel universe. The application of dimensional weapons such as the two-dimensional foil is also very shocking. The Lord of Shen actually spent several years on research. If the three-body world really appears in our field of vision, then the civilization in this three-body world that can use the two-dimensional foil may have power that surpasses our Super God civilization, the big clock answered. As an artificial intelligence, it does not have emotions such as fear. But the research that Li Qingyun conducted with it, the relevant analysis data, and the record of Li Qingyun's personal status at that time were all completely preserved by the big clock. Compressing the three-dimensional world into two dimensions directly destroys a civilization at the dimensional level. This technology is not in Super God technology, right? Xianxia asked. It didn't exist before. It didn't exist before. Xianxia was confused. The answer of the big clock shocked and surprised it. When the Lord of Shen was studying the three-body world, he tried to find a way to achieve this dimensional collapse technology. Later, through the powerful cosmic will, the Lord of Shen's powerful power can also turn a galaxy into a two-dimensional world, and even directly collapse the entire galaxy into a point, that is, return to a simpler initial stage, the big clock replied. If you say so, this is not a technology produced by Super God technology, but just the result of powerful energy forcibly created, which belongs to the forced application of cosmic will and cosmic laws. Xianxia gave his own judgment on the answer of the big clock. From a technological perspective, yes, the big clock did not deny it. So, perhaps the technology of the three-body world is more powerful than the Super God technology of our Super God civilization at this stage? Xianxia's heart has involuntarily developed a good impression of the three-body world. It's a pity that although he can travel through infinite dimensions, he can't choose any other world except the Marvel universe to travel freely. Otherwise, he must go to the three-body world directly to take a look. Chapter 692 DC Universe Dr. Manhattan. The discussion about the three-body world was just a simple exchange between Xianxia and the big clock. Because Xianxia had never really been to the three-body world, and there was no reliable data record about the three-body world in the big clock, all the discussions had no practical significance. In the following time, Xianxia could only follow the routine and constantly increase his knowledge according to his current situation. During this time in the Pacific Rim world, it was very boring for Xianxia. He did not quickly discover the problems of each universe he arrived at, and then devote himself to solving the problems, as he did in the Marvel Infinite Multiverse. He was not like the last Transformers world, where he led a war between planets and populations as an ordinary person. The Pacific Rim world did not have much appeal to Li Xianxia, and he did not even see the monster planet in the second plot come back. Xianxia only saw the space cracks being destroyed in the Pacific Rim world, that is, after the first plot ended, he opened the dimensional door and left. In the next few infinite dimensional universes, he basically did the same. Because those dimensional universes are not even facing the crisis of extinction like the Pacific Rim universe, they are just facing a small technological disaster. For example, The Day After Tomorrow, 2012, and The Martian. However, watching the changes between human nature and life when the doomsday disaster comes is still useful for Li Xianxia. Li Xianxia has a lot of life experience, but he has not faced many tests of human nature. Because he has lived under the protection of Li Qingyun and the entire Super God civilization since he was a child, and because he has very powerful power, Li Xianxia has never experienced such things as betrayal, abandonment, and being swallowed by fear. Although, at this moment, he is just watching, and has not really experienced it, and the feeling he gets is not very strong. But this feeling of watching countless lives die in front of him still makes him record the disasters again and again, and remember them in his heart. Finally, when he was in the sixth dimensional universe, Xianxia stopped. At this time, he has come to a very large world, a world that can be equal to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the DC Cinematic Universe. If the previous Transformers universe was just a whim of Xianxia, and he only faced it with a playful attitude, then the DC universe is a world that he must take seriously. Superman, Wonder Woman, Flash, and Darkseid, a supervillain, and Dr. Manhattan, who has an invincible bug. Xianxia was locked by Dr. Manhattan the moment he appeared. The moment Xianxia walked out of the infinite dimensional channel, Dr. Manhattan appeared in front of him. It was through Dr. Manhattan in front of him that Xianxia determined that he was in the DC universe at the moment. This is a bit embarrassing. Xianxia looked at Dr. Manhattan in front of him and scratched his head helplessly. This was the first time that he was found by someone just after crossing the infinite dimensional universe. I'm different from ordinary people. Dr. Manhattan saw Xianxia's embarrassment and said directly. I can see that, Xianxia said. How can a normal person stand naked in space like this? Your body is made of quantum energy, which means you are not a real existence, but a projection left by other dimensions in this world. Xianxia looked at Dr. Manhattan and soon saw Dr. Manhattan's situation. Something happened to me that caused my mind to enter another dimension. What you see now is just a body I reassembled in the material world. Dr. Manhattan didn't mind that Xianxia could see the condition of his body. In fact, he came here specifically because he felt that someone could see his physical condition clearly and was even very powerful. In my world, there is a true god called Oaa. I have never seen it, but it can create the universe and completely control everything in the universe. It is a true omnipotent god. You may have some abilities similar to his, right? Xianxia said. He felt pressure at this moment, because his eyes of insight saw things that he couldn't analyze. This means that Dr. Manhattan's power is stronger than Xianxia himself. However, Xianxia had long learned from Li Qingyun that although Dr. Manhattan was an anti-hero, he was not a bad guy. He would not kill Xianxia for no reason. Moreover, Xianxia also had a self-protection ability, which was the dark matter plane space constructed by the cosmic membrane. Dr. Manhattan might be able to dominate everything in his world, but Xianxia was not in his world. The existence of the cosmic membrane itself could hide Xianxia in a completely independent world. In this case, Dr. Manhattan might not be able to enter that independent world and harm Xianxia. When his son went away, his father would definitely do his best to give him the greatest protection. Omniscience and omnipotence can be done under certain circumstances, Dr. Manhattan said, but in fact, he could not do it under certain circumstances. The superluminal particle flow would affect Dr. Manhattan's ability to observe the future, but Dr. Manhattan could completely avoid that situation. Well, it's really powerful, Xianxia nodded. Then, let's talk about the most critical issue. Xianxia looked at Dr. Manhattan, began to adjust his expression, and looked at Dr. Manhattan in a very serious state. You appear here, are you trying to stop me from entering this world? This is the most critical question for Xianxia. If Dr. Manhattan wants to stop him from entering the DC universe, then Xianxia will not be able to break through by force. After all, his strength is not enough in front of Dr. Manhattan. Perhaps only if his father comes, he will be able to compete with him. Well, it's just a possibility. The two sides have never really fought, and there is no more data to refer to, so it is difficult to make a correct comparison. No, everything that happens in the material world has its own meaning of existence, and no one should interfere with its development. Dr. Manhattan shook his head. The purpose of my coming here is just out of curiosity. I want to see what kind of person is able to travel from the world I don't know. Chapter 693 Superman is special, but go find Batman first. Dr. Manhattan left soon. Just as he said, his purpose of coming here was just to take a look out of curiosity. After Dr. Manhattan left, Xianxia naturally entered the interior of the Earth smoothly. Through the eye of insight, Xianxia quickly found the target he was looking for. Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Suicide Squad. Xianxia looked at the data he had searched out and began to compare it with the information Li Qingyun had mentioned in his mind. There are only these superheroes recorded at present, which means that Flash, Thunder, Shazam, etc. have not yet become real superheroes. Xianxia looked at the data of several superheroes in front of him, especially paying special attention to Superman. Superman obtains energy from the sun. From this point of view, his strength should not be able to exceed the sun itself, but in terms of performance, Superman, as described by his father, has stronger strength than super soldiers above the third generation of divine bodies. Xianxia directly put Superman's information at the forefront. At this moment, he was carefully analyzing Superman's physical condition. The dark data reads that he has mixed genes, which means that although he has the ability of ordinary Kryptonians to absorb stellar energy to replenish his own energy, his ability itself is a fusion of all the superpowers that Kryptonians can have, the big clock analyzed. But from the performance, he is only good at physical combat, and everything he does is based on simple settings such as numerical values. When Scientia spoke, he further unfolded Superman's data in all aspects. There are all the records of Superman before this, including his combat records after becoming a superhero and his life records before becoming a superhero. In addition, the big clock quickly locked the spaceship that Superman took when he came to Earth, and directly read a lot of information from the spaceship, which was also marked in these data. At this moment, Scientia was looking at these data and conducting a more detailed analysis of Superman. Basic data is difficult to use as a basis for judgment, because Superman has not really shown his full strength so far, the big clock reminded. Indeed, without the most real data, there is no way to make the most accurate judgment. Scientia agreed with the big clock statement. They were originally processing the data of the strongest superhero in an unknown world, and the reason why he could be called the strongest was that his strength could not be simply judged by numerical values. What are you going to do next? Big Clock asked. Of course, I will contact these superheroes first to see what their specific conditions are, Scientia answered. All superheroes, Big Clock felt that this kind of thing should not be so casual. Yes, all superheroes. Scientia closed all the unfolded data after saying this. He turned around and walked towards Gotham City. If you want to meet the superheroes of the DC movie universe, then the first person you have to meet must be Batman. Why not choose to meet Superman first? That's naturally because Superman's personality is not suitable for Scientia to contact rashly. Disguised as an ordinary person living in the city, at the critical moment, put on glasses and leather clothes to become a superhero or something. Superman's life is in two completely different personalities. One is the strongest superhero on Earth, with the power to crush everything. And every battle may cause a great movement. The other is the most inconspicuous little character in the crowd, who looks weak and bullied, and no one cares about him. This kind of personality with a huge contrast between the inside and the outside, no matter what identity Scientia uses to meet him, the first thing he will attract is probably suspicion and vigilance from the other party. Well, it should be the same when meeting Batman, but Batman's suspicion and vigilance are much safer than Superman's. Because Batman's strength is not as strong as Superman. I guess Batman would be extremely depressed if he knew what Scientia was really thinking at the moment. It's because I'm weak that I became the first object to be chosen, not because his popularity are higher than Superman. By the way, who is more popular in the DC universe, Superman or Batman? Scientia soon came to Gotham City. He went directly to Batman's house and rang the doorbell of Bruce Wayne's house. Soon an old man came out. He opened the door directly and faced Scientia. Who are you? Alfu asked. He is Batman's butler and the most important person around Bruce Wayne. Batman's parents died when he was very young. It was this butler who had been taking care of Batman and taught him fighting skills, helping Batman to successfully manage the entire Bruce family business. I'm here to find Batman. Scientia didn't say Wayne, but directly said Batman. As soon as these three words came out, the butler's face changed immediately. But soon he adjusted himself and just pretended to be a little surprised. If you want to find Batman, you should go to the police station. I don't have Batman here, the butler answered. He was still maintaining his original personality until now, that is, he was just a butler of a super rich man, not an assistant of a superhero. Bruce Wayne, Batman, these two identities are actually the same person, Scientia said. My purpose of coming here is not to be an enemy of you, so please tell Batman directly that I am here and ask him to come out and see me immediately. When Scientia said this, he looked up at the camera beside him. He knew that Batman was actually behind the camera at the moment, watching him through the camera, and constantly looking for clues related to Scientia on the internet. Unfortunately, Batman could not find it no matter how hard he looked. In the entire DC universe, only Dr. Manhattan knew that Scientia came from the outside world. Moreover, even Dr. Manhattan only knew that Scientia was an outsider. He really didn't know what Scientia's identity was and what abilities he had. Batman looked at the scene where Scientia looked at the camera and knew that Scientia knew all about his situation. He immediately activated the communication device. Afu, let him in, Batman's voice came, letting the butler know Batman's attitude on this matter. Chapter 694 Bruce Wayne, your vest has fallen off. Afu's expression was obviously not very good at the moment. A person who suddenly appeared and then told Bruce Wayne's biggest secret. If Xianxia is a bad guy and his purpose of coming here is to deal with Batman, then the impact this guy can have on Batman must be huge. Soon, Xianxia came to the hall on the first floor of the villa under the guidance of Afu, and Batman was already waiting in the hall at this moment. He did not wear his own uniform. Obviously, in Batman's eyes, Xianxia is just an ordinary person, and even looks like a teenager. How much of a threat can a teenager pose? I can't find any clues about you on the internet. I guess your identity and origin are also very mysterious. Could you be a superhero like Superman? Batman asked, and he first said superhero instead of supervillain. This is a euphemism, and it is also a statement that will not easily make people feel uncomfortable. Xianxia's identity and origin are completely unknown, which means that this person's identity is a mystery. This kind of person is either a superhero or a supervillain, but definitely not an ordinary person. I am an alien, just stranded here temporarily. Xianxia saw what Batman was thinking, so he simply followed his thoughts and gave an explanation of his identity. Are you an alien? Batman looked at Xianxia in surprise. You can understand it that way. Xianxia nodded and said. What can you prove? Batman still had to take precautions. What if he met a psychopath who happened to know his identity? The dart in your pocket, Xianxia said, and almost at the same time, the dart appeared in front of Xianxia. Batman's face changed drastically when he saw this scene. He subconsciously reached out to touch his pocket, but found that there was nothing there. In other words, the dart in Xianxia's hand was most likely the one he had hidden in his pocket before. How did you do it? Batman was shocked by Xianxia's ability, but he was more curious about how Xianxia did it. Just now, he clearly did not sense anyone approaching him, let alone anyone touching him, but the dart suddenly appeared in Xianxia's hand. I can transfer all the objects I know to a specific location, such as antiques on the bottom of the Pacific Ocean. As Xianxia spoke, a wet antique appeared in front of him. Parts on an aircraft carrier, a small mechanical component appeared in front of him. And the remote control of the Batank hidden in your bedside table, the stones in the Sahara Desert, and the magma erupting from the crater, all these things, as long as they are on Earth, as long as I know them, I can find them according to my wishes. Xianxia used the more mysterious statement to describe his ability, but in fact, this is micro-wormhole transportation. At this moment, all the objects he was moving were directly read by the dark communication of the big clock, and they were materials that had long been recorded in the database of the big clock, so Xianxia was able to transfer them using micro-wormhole transportation technology. I thought I already knew all the superpowers in this world, but I didn't expect that there would be someone like you, Batman sighed. Didn't you just say that I was an alien? How could you say such a limited sentence? Xianxia felt a little confused. Batman's way of speaking at this moment seemed to be very different from before. No, you are not an alien, Batman said. Why do you think so? Xianxia was very curious. How could Batman suddenly make such a guess, which was completely different from before? When you talked about the Earth, it didn't sound like you were talking about a strange planet, and the abilities you mentioned are all limited to the Earth, and you said that everything you know can be found. In other words, you are very familiar with the situation on Earth. What kind of person would be very familiar with a planet? It can only be someone who originally lived on this planet and has been studying this planet for a long time. Batman stated his own inference, the basis for his belief that Xianxia is an Earthling. Well, you make a lot of sense. Xianxia did not refute Batman. Although Xianxia can actually grasp the entire situation of a planet in an instant through the eye of insight, he does have a special feeling for the Earth. Moreover, not only has he studied the Earth for a long time, but the Super God Academy of the entire Super God civilization has also been studying the Earth. Let's put it this way, as long as the people of the Super God Academy are willing, they can blow the entire Earth into atomic dust, and then recreate a completely identical new Earth through dust aggregation. It's still the kind that you can't find the slightest difference even with a magnifying glass. There's actually no point in investigating my true identity, Xianxia said. Indeed, it doesn't matter what your identity is. What matters is why you come to me. Batman looked at Xianxia and said. Many things will happen to the Earth in the future. Maybe the whole Earth will be completely destroyed. I plan to contribute, so I have to stay here for a while, Xianxia said. What? The Earth is going to be destroyed? Batman was shocked, and Alfu next to him couldn't calm down anymore and was making tea. The destruction of the Earth is much more serious than the small fights against criminals that Batman had done before. I just said there is a crisis of destruction, but whether it will really be destroyed depends on how you deal with it, Xianxia said. When doing things in the infinite dimensional universe, there is no need to worry about the timeline, so Xianxia can intervene directly and change all the future in a completely different way. You said us? What does this mean? Batman grasped the key point in Xianxia's words. If one day, an enemy appears on Earth that neither you nor other superheroes can deal with, what will you do? Xianxia asked Batman in return. If no one can deal with it, then unite everyone and fight together, Batman gave the answer almost subconsciously. Sure enough, Xianxia nodded with satisfaction. The Marvel Universe and the DC Universe are really very similar in many ways. With this idea, it's no wonder that the Justice League, similar to the Avengers, was born later. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 695, Resurrection of the Sidewinder. Will there really be a destructive crisis that requires all superheroes to join forces? Batman asked again. That's beyond doubt, Xianxia gave a positive answer. Then don't worry now. You can do what you want to do as usual. When you really feel the crisis, it won't be too late to start taking action, Xianxia interrupted Batman. It's not the time to form the Justice League yet. No hurry, Batman was increasingly unable to see through the man in front of him. I won't go into more details. I think you have your own decision. Whether I say it or not, you will naturally think of what to do. Xianxia said a lot of nonsense. Why did he say nonsense? Because at this moment, facing Batman would not believe everything he said. In this case, there is no need to waste time thinking. Just say a few words casually. He will listen or not. It doesn't matter to him. Batman is just as Xianxia guessed at this moment. He never believed everything Xianxia said from the beginning, and he couldn't not believe it at all. After all, the things involved behind this are a bit too big, and Xianxia's ability is also in front of him. Therefore, he chose not to delve too much. No matter how many questions he asked, it was meaningless. He could only investigate and observe slowly afterwards. Anyway, Xianxia was staying with him temporarily, and he would not leave his side in the future. Because, if Xianxia really wanted to hide, he would not come to find him. Your villa is quite big, I will stay here, you should have no objection, right? Xianxia looked at Batman and asked. Whatever, Batman said. Yes, Xianxia nodded, and then began to drink by himself. With a wave of his hand, a bottle of red wine appeared out of thin air. With a casual throw, the thing disappeared again. This method of summoning things out of thin air and putting them back intact, Batman was even more shocked when he saw it with his own eyes. Xianxia, this guy who looks harmless, must have unfathomable strength. With that method of summoning objects casually, if he suddenly sent a bomb into someone's pocket, it would really make people die without knowing how they died. For a long time afterwards, Xianxia did not let Batman see any problems. Xianxia enjoyed himself every day, watching movies, tasting red wine, eating all kinds of food, and playing all kinds of games. Sometimes Batman could only see Xianxia lying on the sofa and swiping his phone all day. At first, Batman thought Xianxia was pretending, so he stared at him carefully. But after observing for a long time, he gradually got used to it. In addition, as Batman, he always wanted to intervene in various things happening in Gotham City. So, Batman began to put on his uniform again, rode on his chariot and set off at night to punish evil. Of course, it doesn't mean that when Batman goes out to work, Xianxia will be completely ignored. As Batman's butler and assistant, Alfu has been observing Xianxia's situation. It's just that this kind of observation is useless. During this period, although Xianxia seemed to do nothing, he was just like a person who lay at home and waited for death all day. But in fact, Xianxia was not idle. He entered his own dark matter plane and was repairing the transformers that he had recovered. The first one was Sidewinder, who had used his body to take a shell from Megatron for Skysha on the battlefield. Although Skysha was not afraid of the shell, Sidewinder's action was to save Skysha without knowing Skysha's true situation. This was precious. Therefore, Skysha had already decided to restore Sidewinder. Now that he had come to the DC universe and had some free time, Skysha began to repair Sidewinder himself. First, he checked all the parts on his body. He originally wanted to repair them, but the big clock had already repaired them at that time, then sorted out his memory chips, and then transferred energy to Sidewinder's body. As the energy given by Skysha was integrated into his body, Sidewinder's body, which had originally lost its power, quickly recovered at this moment. This heroic Autobot who had died in battle was resurrected in a completely unfamiliar world. What am I doing? Sidewinder looked around blankly, looking at the dark environment and the broken bodies of other Autobots piled up around him. This is the dark matter plane space that I control, Scientia said, and after hearing his words, Sidewinder lowered his head and looked at Scientia. Scientia, Sidewinder was puzzled. Aren't you an ordinary person? Did you create this place? Sidewinder looked at the space around him, and he felt like he was in an empty space in the universe. However, he could definitely feel the existence of gravity, as if he was standing on the ground. The one in the Transformers world is just my disguise. My true identity is actually a super soldier from another world with super technology and abilities, Scientia answered, and his words made Sidewinder even more confused. Super soldier from another world? Sidewinder had never heard of these things, and didn't know what the super soldier was like. It doesn't matter if you don't know. You just need to know that I actually have very powerful strength and abilities, Scientia said with a smile. When facing someone as loyal to him as Sidewinder, Scientia would not put on airs. It was just that there were some things that could not be told to Sidewinder in too much detail, otherwise Scientia would definitely tell Sidewinder everything about the super god civilization in the Marvel Universe. After all, this was the DC Universe, and there was a person like Dr. Manhattan who could know the future. Scientia had to be reserved at all times, and he had to be careful not to expose all his cards. Of course, if Sidewinder was kept hidden in the dark matter plane, he would not be afraid of Dr. Manhattan knowing. But since Scientia had already resurrected Sidewinder, it was impossible for him to stay here forever, otherwise it would be the same as being put in solitary confinement. In that case, it would be better to wait until later to revive him. At least he would not have to lie alone in a dark world for the next few years or even more than 10 years. Okay, I believe you. In fact, Sidewinder had many doubts, but he believed that Scientia would not lie to him. Chapter 696 Is my chariot more handsome? After Scientia resurrected Crossbow, he summoned him out soon after. When Batman came back, he saw a sports car suddenly appeared in his villa, and he was completely confused. Where did this car come from? Batman looked at Alfu and asked. This was summoned by Mr. Scientia out of thin air, saying that it was his exclusive chariot. Alfu replied. Chariot? That's it. Batman listened to Alfu's words, and then carefully observed Crossbow, and found that it was just a sports car with a slightly unique shape, and immediately questioned it. Why, do you think my chariot can compare to your Batmobile? Scientia walked out of the house at this time. Isn't it obvious? Batman has been with Scientia for a long time, and now he doesn't have so many taboos when talking to Scientia, so he speaks frankly. Crossbow, he said that you can't compare to his broken car. What do you think? Scientia ignored Batman, but walked to Crossbow, patted the roof of Crossbow and said. You are. Batman was confused. Why are you following the car and talking to it at this time? Can the car tell you the answer by itself? However, just when Batman thought Scientia was strange, a shocking scene appeared. The sports car suddenly shook, and then the body began to deform. At this moment, Batman and the butler Alfu were both stunned. They just watching a car that was only more than 1 meter high suddenly turned into a huge robot several meters high. After the robot came out, it did not just stand there and pose, but took 2 steps at a time and walked directly to Batman's chariot and kicked it. The next moment, Batman's chariot, which was decorated by aliens and equipped with various weapon systems, was kicked to the ground. That's it, Sidewinder said, and his words were obviously in response to what Batman said when he looked down on him before. Batman felt very embarrassed at this time. He looked down on other people's chariots, but other people's chariots looked down on his chariots and kicked his chariot to the ground. At this time, no matter how cool the appearance of his chariot is or how many weapons it is equipped with, it is not good enough. Because in comparison, Xianxia's chariot that can be directly transformed into a robot has completely defeated any other chariots that cannot be transformed. Xianxia, where did you get this car? Can you get me one too? After being stunned, Batman began to have a strong interest. He also wanted to have such a special chariot like Xianxia. Apart from anything else, the fact that the chariot itself can have independent thoughts and can fight on its own is very useful to him. When dealing with those super criminals, Batman sometimes feels that he does not have enough manpower and cannot capture people. But with his chariot, it is different. At critical moments, he can directly turn into a robot. Even if he does nothing, just standing there can cause enough deterrence to the enemy. What's more, this robot can still move on its own, and it is obviously equipped with powerful firepower. Maybe it is an extremely powerful robot warrior. I can't just give you my car. Xianxia naturally has other Autobots. In his dark matter plane space, there are still the wreckage of several Autobots. Xianxia has already thought about it. In the future, he will repair them one by one and help them revive. As for the theories that the big clock told him before, Xianxia thinks that the big clock is right. But Xianxia also thinks that it doesn't matter what happened in the past. The most important thing is his own opinion. These Autobots have died once. He gave them a new life. That is the grace of rebirth he gave them. They appeared in other worlds, but they were just remade by others. Xianxia originally had this ability, so it was not surprising that he made anything. As for the Autobots' own subjective thoughts and the unfairness to human soldiers, those were all things in the previous world. What does it have to do with this world? At worst, if the Autobots can't stand it, they can just dismantle them again. Anyway, Xianxia will definitely respect the wishes of these Autobots. As for how the Autobots choose, that is their own business. Well, there will never be a person who chooses to die after being resurrected, right? However, although Xianxia still has Autobots in his hands, he will never give them to others casually. After all, Autobots have their own thoughts and behaviors, and Xianxia will definitely respect the opinions of the Autobots themselves. Secondly, if Xianxia releases all the power of Transformers at once, the development of the entire DC universe will probably be affected. If you don't give it casually, you can ask for any conditions. Batman really likes a tank like Sidewinder. He has already thought about it. If possible, he wants to get one from Xianxia even if he has to pay more. Xianxia hesitated a little. Wait a minute, I'll see if there's anyone willing to follow you later. Xianxia finally gave a not very sure answer. He lives in Batman's house, and the two have been together for a long time and have a little friendship. In this case, Batman asked him for a car. If Xianxia refused too ruthlessly, it would not be appropriate. Okay, it's settled. If you have a chance, you must give me one, Batman said, and then turned and walked into the house. He had to take off all his armor. Although Batman and Iron Man are both billionaires, he gives people a completely different feeling from Iron Man. Iron Man is a pure technology flow. All his abilities come from technology, and he is also very good at using technology. Batman, on the other hand, is a combination of technology and physical skills. He uses technology to make some powerful weapons for himself, but his own physical skills are also very powerful. Therefore, Batman's sense of technology is not as amazing as Iron Man. Like the suit on Batman, he is actually just a set of armor with very strong defense, but the material used is special, which makes it have strong defense and can be controlled by the human body's own strength. But the main function of this suit is limited to self-defense, and it cannot provide powerful weapons like the Iron Suit. To be honest, in terms of hero ability shaping, Marvel is better and more distinctive. Chapter 697, Kryptonian ship arrives. An alien spaceship has been detected approaching from outside the Earth. Through data detection, it can be determined that it is a Kryptonian spaceship. The voice of the big clock came when Xianxia was chatting with Batman in the living room. Kryptonian spaceship, Xianxia raised his eyebrows. It is a spaceship used to imprison Kryptonian criminals. There are several former prisoners of Kryptonian in the spaceship. They have special physical qualities. Once they come into contact with a golden sun, their bodies will be filled with extremely powerful explosive energy, the big clock explained. Everyone is Superman. Xianxia naturally knew what the situation of those Kryptonians was like. What's wrong? Batman noticed Xianxia's situation at this time and asked quickly. A Kryptonian spaceship has arrived. The people on it are from Krypton. They have the same physical qualities as Superman, But their personalities are completely different from Superman. Xianxia did not hide it from Batman. Anyway, he would know these things soon. What? Different personalities? Could they be here to launch an invasion? Batman thought of the huge crisis that Xianxia mentioned earlier. Superman alone is invincible on Earth, but now a group of guys like Superman have come, and Xianxia specifically said that they have different personalities from Superman. Superman is the guardian of justice on Earth, although that method is not what Batman likes, but Superman is indeed doing good things. Therefore, guys with different personalities from Superman must be villains in Batman's eyes. A group of villains at the level of Superman, how can Superman alone be their opponent? No, although they are also very difficult, they are not enough to threaten the safety of the entire Earth. We need everyone to participate in it to fight against them. Xianxia shook his head. Although the Kryptonian came to Earth and caused a lot of trouble to the Earth, this matter was finally turned around by Superman's own strength. Superman, who has the secret book of the Kryptonian, has more strength and potential than other Kryptonians. You mean, in the future, something that will threaten the safety of the whole world will be more serious than this? Batman felt that the current situation was already very dangerous, but he didn't expect Xianxia to say that this was not a threat to the safety of the Earth, and it was not yet time to unite all superheroes. Then what kind of dangerous thing would it be that really required everyone to unite? Yes, Xianxia gave an affirmative answer. Batman's face was gloomy at this moment. He was already worried. He was thinking about what the most dangerous thing would be. But just as he was thinking, Xianxia suddenly disappeared out of thin air and came directly to the location of the Krypton spaceship. However, Xianxia was hiding his figure. He did not expose himself directly, but observed in secret. Soon, a strong radio wave was released from the spaceship, and all the networks on the originally peaceful Earth were instantly interrupted. Batman, who was in the villa, was confused by Xianxia's sudden disappearance. Seeing this situation, he was also a little confused. He tried to restart his devices and wanted to contact Xianxia, but found that everything didn't work at all. Finally, he had no choice but to find the car that Xianxia parked in the garage, and he found Sideswipe. "Hey, can you tell me what's going on now?" Batman asked. And Sideswipe immediately began to transform into a robot. Someone released a large-scale radio interference signal, interfering with all the radio frequencies in the world. They will send the message they want to send to the entire Earth, Sideswipe answered, and his signal had actually just suffered the same impact. However, Sideswipe's body was operating independently, and the communication channel he used was also different from the regular ones on Earth. Therefore, although the communication interference sent by the Kryptonians interrupted global communications, it did not stop Sideswipe's function, nor did it affect Sideswipe itself. What message do they want to send? What message is it? Batman looked at Sideswipe in confusion, and Sideswipe immediately opened a projection. In the projection, it was the message sent by the Kryptonian general at the moment, who was looking for Superman's whereabouts. Are these people here to find Superman? Batman looked at the messages, and his expression became even more confused. Looking at this situation, they are not Superman's friends or relatives, but Superman's enemies. Sidewinder made his judgment. Batman looked at the information and naturally knew this. However, the development of this situation confused him. He didn't know what would happen next on this Earth. In space, Xianxia naturally received the content of those signals. Could Clark really go to the military to surrender himself as his father said, and then let those people take him to the trap? Xianxia looked at the written information and thought about the development of the entire DC Universe event introduced by his father. He also felt a little confused about Superman, the strongest superhero in the DC Universe. There are always such self-righteous saints in the world, thinking that as long as they sacrifice themselves, others will definitely be saved. But what they don't know is that what you get in exchange for sacrificing yourself is often just to make the whole world lose the last means to fight against the enemy. Xianxia finally chose to wait and see. He did not personally intervene in the whole incident, did not see what was going on with Superman, and did not pay attention to the decision of the Earthlings. At this time, it is better to let things develop naturally and let the people of this world experience the consequences of their choices first, and then it will not be too late to help. You actually chose to stand aside and watch. At this moment, Dr. Manhattan appeared again. This guy who appeared once when Xianxia just crossed over appeared next to Xianxia again at this time. He imitated Xianxia and hid himself completely, so that the Kryptonians in front of him could not see his existence at all. "Aren't you also standing aside and watching?" Xianxia asked back. "I am different from you," Dr. Manhattan said. "That's right, you have never considered yourself a superhero. Your position has been an anti-hero from the beginning," Xianxia said, and then he no longer thought about Dr. Manhattan standing aside and watching. Neither of them said anything more, but looked ahead quietly, looking at the Kryptonians. Chapter 698, At what stage should we start intervening? Things developed just as Xianxia knew. Not long after that, Superman was arrested by the human military, and he was taken directly to the transaction point agreed with the Kryptonians. After Superman entered the Kryptonian spaceship, he originally wanted to rely on his own strength to force a war with those people, but found that he had no strength at all. It turned out that everything was within the plan of the Kryptonian general. The air in the spaceship was the original Kryptonian air. In this environment, Superman's own superpowers would be lost. He suddenly changed from an invincible Superman to an ordinary person. This huge gap made Superman collapse to the ground immediately, and he became a tool at the mercy of the general and others. If you don't take action, Superman can also complete the task of saving the world in the end, but in this case, what is the meaning of your appearance? Dr. Manhattan looked at Xianxia. He had actually been thinking about what kind of existence Xianxia was and what impact his appearance would have on the world. Although Dr. Manhattan could know the subsequent plot development by sensing the future, he felt a little strange. All the situations about Xianxia were beyond his prediction. Perhaps, this is because the two were not originally in the same world background. Dr. Manhattan's power is invincible in this world, but when it comes to Xianxia, various restrictions appear. Just as Infinity said to Xianxia at the time. In the Marvel world, Infinity represents the infinity of the entire universe. He has infinite power in that world, omnipotent and unlimited. But his power cannot support him to leave the Marvel world, so that he is full of curiosity about the world outside the Marvel world, and he can't understand any situation or know any information. Therefore, Infinity finally chose to cooperate with Li Qingyun, and use Li Qingyun's way of breaking through the dimension to give Xianxia the power to cross the infinite dimension. The two top existences with the will of the universe have achieved such a feat of transcending dimensions through a strong combination. Dr. Manhattan's power may be at the same level as Infinity and Li Qingyun, but his single power is definitely not enough to interfere with things in other worlds. At this moment, facing Dr. Manhattan's question, Xianxia himself is actually thinking. He traveled to this world, but he really didn't think about what to do specifically. Should we directly forcefully change everything, or should we naturally play a small role in these events, and reduce the losses of the world itself without changing the general direction as much as possible? Xianxia is a dimensional traveler. His goal is to travel through endless dimensions, see more, learn and master more abilities in these dimensional universes. He came with infinite expectations and Li Qingyun's love, and nothing he did was wrong. I decided to wait until the disaster really starts before I take action, Xianxia gave an answer. So, in your opinion, the current situation is not the time for the disaster to start? Dr. Manhattan asked. He really wanted to know what Xianxia was thinking. The real battle has not started yet. Xianxia lowered his head and looked at the blue planet below. Indeed, the real battle has not started yet, and the battle between Superman and the Kryptonians has not really started. Xianxia, can you receive my signal? At this moment, a communication suddenly connected to Xianxia's communication channel. Wayne? How did you contact me? Xianxia was a little curious. With the current communication situation on Earth, Batman should not be able to contact him. I found your chariot. It was the communication channel he provided me with through the latest quantum encryption engine to communicate with you, Batman replied. Wow, this kid Sideways actually helped you, Xianxia said with some surprise, but he was full of teasing when he said it. Well, I promised to take it to a car beauty treatment later. Batman also felt helpless. He didn't expect that this car would be so cool. Sideways, this kid, was bribed by a car beauty treatment. He is really useless, Xianxia teased, but there was no blame in his tone. Sideways knew all this, so he did this. Otherwise, Sideways would not have gone against Xianxia's wishes and told Batman the communication channel. What's the situation now? Where are you now? Batman asked. He was very worried about the situation on Earth at the moment. I'm in space now, watching those Kryptonians trying to extract the secret book from Superman's body, Xianxia answered, And at this time, he thought of a question. According to his father's introduction to him, after the Kryptonian invasion, Batman and Superman had a conflict and started to fight each other. His father once said that Iron Man never won a fight, but never lost a fight. Batman may not be good at fighting, but he has never lost a fight. Batman's ability may not be very good among the superheroes in the DC universe, but Batman can always think of ways to deal with these superheroes with his own intelligence, ability and brain. Moreover, when Iron Man fights, he always shows mercy to his former partners and fellow superheroes. Just like when he fought with Captain America and the Winter Soldier, Stark obviously had an absolute advantage. As long as he wanted, a few missiles would attack these two and there would be absolutely no room for them to fight back. But in the battle at that time, Stark did not use any powerful weapons, and even rarely used the arc pulse cannon. Stark was just venting his anger at the time, fighting with Captain America and the Winter Soldier with his fists. On the other hand, the fight between Batman and Superman was different. Batman knew that Superman was very powerful and that he couldn't beat him, so he chose the most direct and effective way. He went to find kryptonite that could control Superman, and made it into various weapons to target Superman. He did it without any scruples at the time, because he really wanted to kill Superman. On the contrary, Superman didn't fight back at all in that environment. Oh. Let's find a way to stop the fight between these two people. It's completely meaningless. Xianxia already had an idea in his mind, and he sent a message to Batman immediately. The Kryptonians came this time to seize the entire Earth. Their real purpose from the beginning was not just to deal with a certain person, but to find a new planet suitable for them to live in, because their original planet has been destroyed long ago. Chapter 699, Humans don't care about the life and death of ants. Are you saying that no matter what we do, the Kryptonians will eventually invade? Batman's tone became heavy. Originally in his heart, he was actually thinking that all of this was caused by Superman. It was because Superman appeared on Earth that the Kryptonians came to seek revenge. If Superman caused serious damage to the Earth because of the fight between him and the Kryptonians, Batman would definitely think that it was caused by Superman. But now, Xianxia's words made him realize that Superman's role in this incident might just be an inducement. If one day, the Earth has been destroyed, and you and a group of people have become the last survivors of the entire Earth, and you happen to discover another vibrant planet at this time, where the natives have no power to resist, what would you think? Xianxia did not answer, but directly proposed a hypothesis to Batman. I will choose to cooperate with the people of that planet and coexist with them. We can cooperate with each other and develop together. Batman thought for a while and gave his answer. If the atmosphere on this planet is not suitable for your survival, and you have the ability to directly change the atmosphere of the entire planet, will you change it? Even if in the process of transformation, all the natives will die because they cannot adapt to the new atmosphere. Xianxia asked the question again, and this time, Batman, who was originally thinking about saying that he would not do so, stopped at the moment when he was about to say it. A group of innocent people on a strange planet, and the last survival of his own race. No matter which side he chooses, it is wrong, either to be sorry for the natives, or to be sorry for his own race. See, even a superhero like you will hesitate? If it were ordinary people, how could they not be moved? Xianxia no longer gave Batman the opportunity to continue thinking, because Batman's hesitation actually explained everything. People are selfish. When faced with such things, they will subconsciously favor themselves, the people around them, and their own tribe. What's more, a superior who is high above others will look down on the lives of the weak. Just like when you face the ants on the ground, you don't consider how much harm your rival has caused to these ants. You only feel that those ants are blocking you from passing through there, and their existence makes you feel uncomfortable, then you step on them all to death. Xianxia's statement was cruel and direct, but what he stated was an indisputable fact. Even Batman, a self-proclaimed righteous superhero, subconsciously considered whether to sacrifice the indigenous people in exchange for the survival of the race when facing the problems mentioned by Xianxia just now. How could other people be indifferent? In the current situation, Superman and the other Kryptonians should be in the same situation as himself. Superman may have a noble character, and he was raised by Earthlings since he was a child, so he is very close to Earth, so he maintains peace on Earth and is even willing to sacrifice for it. But the other Kryptonians are just a group of people who are left behind in a civilization. All they care about is finding a new planet to live on. They have absolutely powerful strength, and they can destroy the world with a wave of their hands like Superman, and their powerful weapons can directly change the environment of the Earth. In this case, when they face the humans on Earth, it is just like what Xianxia described, that is, a human facing a group of ants. How can humans feel compassion when facing ants? If you say so, isn't this a life and death war between us and those Kryptonians from the beginning? Batman asked. Now he no longer considers the impact of Superman's existence on the Earth, and he no longer thinks that Superman is the culprit. Now Batman only cares about what will happen to the Earth in the future. Yes, and the Kryptonians' plan to transform the Earth is expected to start soon. Xianxia gave an affirmative answer. Where are they fighting? Batman asked. He had already decided to go to support them. He was going to deal with those Kryptonians. With your current strength, you won't be able to do anything even if you really go there. It's better to stay at home or go to the city where the war will happen later to see if you can protect some innocent people, Xianxia said. He told Batman those things, but he didn't intend to let Batman come to participate in the battle. Batman felt very helpless when listening to what Xianxia said. He called himself a superhero, but when it really came to such a major crisis, he couldn't play any role. The communication with Xianxia was interrupted. Batman put on his battle suit and drove his chariot to the densely populated urban area. Just like Xianxia said, since there was no way to participate in it and no way to intervene in this war between Kryptonians, then he would find a way to see if he could rescue more civilians. At the same time, Batman also began to contact some people he had already paid attention to, but had never planned to touch before. Other superheroes who also have superpowers. Among them, the only one whose contact information he knew was Wonder Woman. On the other side, Xianxia in space was still keeping an eye on Superman's situation. Such an alien spaceship, an ordinary woman from Earth sneaked in and no one noticed it. Do you think his technology is advanced or not? Xianxia looked at the movement in the spaceship and saw Superman's girlfriend constantly shuttling inside the spaceship, looking for Superman's traces, and couldn't help but start to complain. The Kryptonian spaceship has the ability to travel far into the stars, but its interior is too large, and the overall monitoring system is extremely lacking. It is not surprising that it cannot control all the situations, Dr. Manhattan said. Really? Xianxia listened to Dr. Manhattan's answer, but felt non-committal. The technology of the Super God universe would not have such a problem. Even if it was just a spaceship of the Teodi Legion, anyone who entered the spaceship would be discovered by the people in the spaceship at the first time. It can only be said that the technological settings of this world are still not rigorous enough. Chapter 700 Superman's Physical Data. I'd better take action. This scene of love and affection, appearing in this occasion, always feels a bit out of place, Xianxia said, and stretched out his hand in the air. At the moment when his hand stretched out, there was a wave in the surrounding space, and Superman and his girlfriend were directly teleported in front of Xianxia. Moreover, in order to protect Superman's girlfriend from being killed directly by the harsh environment in this space, Xianxia also specially created a space barrier for her to protect her. This is, Superman's girlfriend was shocked, and she couldn't figure out what was going on in front of her. I'm here to help you, so there's no need to panic, Xianxia said in a voice as gentle as possible, and when he subconsciously turned his head to look to his side, he found that Dr. Manhattan had disappeared long ago. The strongest man in the DC universe was unwilling to participate in the events related to the Justice League, after all. Then where is this place? Superman's girlfriend asked, and she looked at the surrounding environment and always felt very weird. This isn't space outside the Earth, Xianxia replied. Clark is a Kryptonian. His body will not die even in space. Moreover, he will recover quickly as long as he absorbs the energy of the stars, but you are different. You are just an ordinary human. If you are directly exposed to space, you will die instantly, so I will use this space barrier to seal you up. Only in this way can you stay in space, Xianxia explained, and Superman's girlfriend finally saw that she had been in a nearly transparent barrier. Seeing this, she was basically sure that she was really protected, and the guy in front of her did not look like someone who wanted to harm her and Superman. But when did such a guy appear on Earth, who could stand in the universe out of thin air, instantly transform himself and Superman from the spaceship, and provide himself with such a space barrier as protection? Who are you? Are you also a superhero on Earth? Superman's girlfriend asked. She was very curious about Xianxia's identity at this time. Almost, Xianxia answered, but then he turned his head and looked at Superman, his eyes turning wide at this moment. The Eye of Insight was activated, and Xianxia began to pour all his energy into Superman, reading Superman's body data at close range. Superman's girlfriend didn't know what Xianxia was doing, but thinking of what Xianxia said before and the situation when she was just transferred out, she could only think that Xianxia was helping Superman. The most important thing is that even if she really regarded Xianxia as a bad guy, she couldn't do anything at this moment. Now she's not on the spaceship, but in space. In the spaceship, if she makes a fuss, she will be discovered at most, and she may struggle in the spaceship to delay time. But here, if Xianxia really has bad intentions, he can immediately open the barrier around her with just a thought. When she is exposed to the sun, she will naturally have no way out. Is this the secret code of the Kryptonian? Xianxia looked at the information in Superman's body, the secret code that has been integrated into Superman's blood. This secret book records all the genetic data of Kryptonians, that is, it is equivalent to all the original genetic factors of Kryptonians. As long as the secret book exists, the entire Kryptonian race can be recreated through the secret book. Similarly, the existence of the secret book has also changed Superman's physical fitness. The biggest difference is that he can directly adapt to the atmospheric environment on Earth, but Kryptonians can't. Xianxia looked at the data and conducted his own analysis. However, why can he adapt to the atmospheric environment on Earth, but can't adapt to the Kryptonian atmosphere in the spacecraft? Is it because of long-term exposure to one environment, and after suddenly transferring to another different environment, the body naturally produces a rejection reaction? Xianxia was thinking about this question. He himself never had to think about these things. The body of a super soldier itself has extremely strong adaptability and can self-repair for almost all environments in the universe. After all, super soldiers replenish their needs through energy. As long as the stellar energy and dark energy in the universe exist, they can survive. Oxygen, atmospheric environment, etc., have no effect on super soldiers like Xianxia. Absorbing the energy of the golden sun can make oneself extremely powerful. What's the matter with this setting? Xianxia began to list this part of the information separately, and spread the relevant information completely in front of him. The energy of the sun is also stellar energy, but whether it is golden energy or red energy, it is the same type of stellar energy. But when they were on Krypton, the Kryptonians had no superpowers at all when facing the red sun. Now that we are in the solar system, we can get infinite energy under the irradiation of the golden sun. When Xianxia thought about this, he looked up at the sun in the distance, the golden sun that had just appeared in their field of vision. Almost when the light of the golden sun fell, Superman, who was originally sleeping, also quickly received energy replenishment. His body functions were recovering rapidly, and he would recover soon. Seeing this situation, Xianxia could only temporarily give up the study of Superman's physical condition, and instead observe the situation of Superman in front of him. As the energy of the golden sun was absorbed in large quantities, Superman finally recovered to his prime. He woke up and subconsciously maintained a fighting state. But soon he saw his girlfriend. The moment he saw his girlfriend, he rushed over directly. But at this moment, Xianxia was quick to create a shield in front of Superman's girlfriend. The power generated by the shield stopped Superman's movement, and then he immediately turned his head and looked at Xianxia. But he opened his mouth, but the words he said could not come out at all. This is space. Sound cannot be transmitted in a vacuum environment. Your normal way of speaking will not work. While Xianxia was speaking, he waved his hand casually, and a layer of invisible air filled the surroundings, making Superman instantly feel like he was on Earth. Who are you? Why are you stopping me from approaching Ryan? Superman questioned, but before Xianxia could answer, Lois Lane next to him had already spoken. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.